Shut up and sit down.
Welcome back to Rank, motherfuckers. I'm Charles. That's McCurdy. That's Scott. That's Nathan. This is GoldenEye movie number 17. This is Pierce Brosnan. Bond number 5. Got it. Good. Moving on. GoldenEye follows in the footsteps of License to Kill with another revenge plot. However, this time it's the bad guy with the murderous vendetta. Is it Spectre? You know, the organization with the word revenge in its name? No. This is the Janus Syndicate, headed up by an XOO, a Lienz Cossack who really likes two things: betrayal and walking out of moody shadows. Alec Trevelyan, the same guy who tried to take the ring from Frodo in The Lord of the Rings. Trevelyan and his syndicate steal Mischa and Grishka, the two Russian-made satellites collectively known as GoldenEye, with which they attempt to destroy London because the English government was mean to mad little Alec's Nazi Rusky parents one time. How did they steal the GoldenEyes, you ask? With the help of the invincible Boris Grishenko, of course, a perverted computer programmer who plays gutter-minded word games with the exquisite Natalya Fyodorovna Semyonova. The riddle he gives her for spiking things, whatever that means, goes like this. You sit on it, but you can't take it with you. Later, Bond answers this riddle with the word chair. But what the literal What the hell is stopping anybody from sitting on a chair, standing up, picking up the chair, and taking it with them? Since when are all chairs bolted to the floor? I mean, shit. When Boris gives her this clue, he's saying it while sitting on a chair that you can easily take with you because it rolls across the floor. And speaking of floor, this was the perfect answer to the riddle. You can sit on the floor, but you certainly can't take it with you when you get up. And when Bond thinks he's all clever and answering the riddle with chair, he's sitting on the damn floor that he's trying to cut through with his watch laser. And Natalya Fyodorovna Semyonova, with her big dumb face, thinks the answer has to do with her butt. Bitch, you've literally taken your ass with you everywhere you've ever been, ever. So how could it possibly be your bottom? The f*** is this This movie is garbage. How did anybody ever think this was clever and not f***ing stupid? F*** this crap movie. Forget about putting it below You Only Live Twice. I vote we leave this turd mountain off the list entirely and skip Tomorrow Never Dies, skip The World Is Not Enough, and skip Die Another Day, because that's how much Pierce Brosnan and company managed to f*** this franchise right up to 00.
Oh. So number one, then?
Yeah, we should probably put this at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway,
got any more nitpicks you want to tell us about?
Just kidding. That is maybe the only problem I have with this movie is that stupid riddle.
Wow.
Well, too bad we got downvoted in that AMA with the director.
Yeah. Martin Campbell, bless his heart, who directed this movie. He did that AMA on our movies on Reddit. I asked him, why? Why this riddle thing? How did it just it has always bewildered me how the thought process on that. And I really want to go read the original script and see what was in there, because he's like, "Cha," with such confidence, and she's like, "Yeah, that must be it." But it just doesn't make any sense.
I think that should have been the passcode in Casino Royale instead of Vesper.
Yeah.
Just chair.
Yeah, that would have been more appropriate.
Knockers.
Yeah, GoldenEye completes the Bond franchise trend of, if gold's in the title, it's probably going to be a pretty good movie. Don't say it, McCurdy, but for me at least, the Golden movies, this is our third and final.
You slugheads. I can't read in these things,
What
by the way.
You
You slugheads.
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 I don't have a pen with me. Damn it! I could have completed the costume with a pen.
Here,
I'll
I'll
just
do
do
it
the
for
clicking
you.
thing. Okay, I feel like I've gotten very old all of a sudden.
This movie made me feel old.
Yeah. Between GoldenEye and License to Kill, there is a 6-year gap. So to this point in the series, this is the longest gap between movies. A lot had happened in between this time frame, but I would argue it's also a blessing in disguise. Most of the films before this, it's like there was 2 years, maybe 3 years.
In the beginning, it was every year, right?
Every year. And then they kind of went to a year in between films. And then, you know, if they changed up a Bond, there might have been an extra year there, here or there. But like, this is the longest gap they've had, is a 6-year gap till this point. So after License to Kill, Eon was already in the works for a third Dalton picture for 1991, which would have had him travel to Hong Kong. The film is possibly going to be titled Property of a Lady.
Property of a lady.
Which is Fleming's short story that you may remember elements were used in Octopussy.
Property of a lady.
But according to Dalton, they had finished a script and they were already looking for a director. But a few things led for this not to happen. At one point, United Artists was its own separate company. United Artists made this movie called Heaven's Gate. It did really bad at the box office. It tanked the studio. MGM went in. They ended up buying it. That was the early 80s. So that was in 1981. MGM now owns United Artists by this point. So these last couple movies, MGM was the parent company. Kind of like how today Disney owns all of 20th Century Fox. So anytime you see, it's just now called 20th Century Pictures, that's a Disney production.
Okay. Because for me, if you ask me, I would think that in this 6-year interim, that's when MGM bought it out, because this movie just screams big studio picture.
There's more that happens here. So what happened was this company called Pathé Entertainment, which is not to be confused with Pathé Films in France. It's a French company. They ended up buying MGM. And so they were going to change the name of MGM Pathé Communications or something like that. In the process of doing so, they were like, the new CEO was like, well, I'm going to sell off the distribution rights to, in doing so, I'm trying to basically make money back from it. So he's going to sell a bunch of these distribution rights so he can make money. And Dan Jack, which if you guys remember, is Broccoli's company that owns the film rights. They're not the production company, like Eon's the production company that makes the films. Dan Jack holds the rights for the James Bond franchise. And MGM also has rights. They own the distribution rights at this point. Dan Jack was like, yo, you can't do that because we have an agreement back in 1962 for the distribution rights. Like, that violates our contract. So then there was basically this huge legal battle that happened, which is like 5 to 6 years. So between 89 all the way up to 95 or somewhere around that time. So that's the first thing that happens. The second big thing is probably bigger in world history is the Cold War ended. And that's mostly symbolized by the teardown of the Berlin Wall in November of 89, which is, I guess, if I can remember correctly, License to Kill came out, I think, in the summer. So it's sometime in that same year.
Them saying they were going to go to China, that makes sense. If Russia's down, China is a perfect
China's the next thing. So basically, for a lot of people in Hollywood, though, like the Cold War started and popularized the spy genre. So a lot of people were like, why are you still doing Bond if the Cold War is over? But this also, again, laid the foundations for what would become GoldenEye for the story.
You're a sexist, misogynist dinosaur. A relic of the Cold War.
And then finally, after all that dust had settled with the MGM lawsuit, production would again begin on the 17th Bond film. And at this point, Dalton's contract had expired in 93. So they were like, there was a contract that would say, okay, you have to do X number of films between this year, and that would be your contract. But since they hadn't made any movies in that time period, his contract had expired. So they were like, yo, are you going to do this next movie? And he's like, I'm only going to do one. And they really wanted him to come back to do multiple films because it would be weird if he just did 3. So they were like, okay, great. We're going to go with somebody else. And obviously they went back to their original choice before all of this happened. Our favorite Irish Bond, Pierce Brosnan, which we had talked about back in For Your Eyes Only, correct? Yeah. We talked about For Your Eyes Only, and then also in The Living Daylights. We had talked about how he basically became Bond.
He was on the set of For Your Eyes Only with his wife, who would later die of cancer in 91 or something.
Yeah.
And then he was originally supposed to be in The Living Daylights.
Yeah.
And then NBC re-upped on Remington Steele. So just real quick on that, I recently bought the first season of Remington Steele. I've been watching it. And not only do you have an absolute baby-faced Pierce Brosnan, but it's actually a much more interesting premise than I expected. And you'll like this, McCurdy, because you're a progressive feminist.
Okay.
I remember always thinking, oh, Remington Steele, that just sounds like such a stereotype of I assumed it was a spy thing. Remington Steele, it just doesn't that sound as generic as possible? Which kind of goes back to what you told us all in the Dr. No episode about how Ian Fleming wanted the name James Bond because it didn't sound like a spy name at all.
Ian Fleming, when he was writing the story, he came to try to find the name for the character, and he looked up on his bookshelf, and he saw this book, and it was by an ornithologist, and his name was James Bond.
Oh, and that's it, yeah?
It was a real guy. James Bond was this guy, and he just put the name down.
Ornithologist.
Ornithologist, huh?
And then on the opposite end of that, you have Remington Steele. If your name is Remington Steele, you could only be a spy. It sounds ridiculous. Well, it turns out the premise of the show is that there's this female detective who doesn't get any work because nobody hires her because they're thinking she's a chick. I don't want to hire a chick. So she makes up this persona, Remington Steele, and pretends that he's her boss, even though nobody ever sees him. She keeps him all mysterious. He has an office, but he's not real. And then Pierce Brosnan, who's nobody knows, maybe he's a con artist, maybe he's a murderer, maybe he's a thief. In the first episode, he is forced into assuming that persona. And then him and the detective chick, they kind of hit it off to where he just becomes the face of her agency so she can keep solving crimes and he can take all the credit and spend all the money and go on dates and eat caviar and drink champagne. Like he acts like James Bond, but really he's just a schlub. And so it's actually a really great premise for a show. And then I'm thinking, oh, okay, the whole Remington Steele thing makes sense. It was literally a name that she came up with to sound super spy-like.
It kind of reminds me of North by Northwest, because in that story, it's kind of the same thing. The government comes up with a fake name, and then the main character, played by Cary Grant, gets confused with it, and it's kind of a spy thriller, and it's in a different way. But yeah, that kind of also reminds me of that.
Pierce Brosnan in Remington Steele is obsessed with movies, so he's constantly referencing them, and he'll reference North by Northwest. He'll quote all these movies, and it just lends to him having this weird backstory that nobody knows anything about, but he's probably just a guy who watched too many movies.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I might have to check it out now.
Yeah, I recommend it.
Sounds like some people I know.
Yeah.
Hey!
So, other things that are worth mentioning about this as well is Albert Broccoli wasn't in the best of weather. He wasn't feeling the best. His health was starting to deteriorate. So Michael G. Wilson is now the new producer alongside his daughter, Barbara Broccoli. So you'll notice like they're the main producers on these films, and he is only listed as like a presenting producer. So he's kind of a consultant on this movie. We have new fresh faces at the helm. The movie is now directed by Martin Campbell, as Charlie had pointed out in the beginning, who was actually the oldest director in the Bond franchise up until this point. He was 62. The previous oldest director was Lewis Gilbert at 59, which I was just like, really?
He was 62 when they filmed this?
He was 62 when they filmed this. And he got his start doing softcore porn like back in the 70s, which I think is just like
definitely came in handy when Xenia was jumping on top
Xenia.
of 007.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Xenia throughout this whole film.
Yeah.
You think you can break me?
And then we had Richard Maybaum. We already talked about he had passed away. And Michael G. Wilson was mainly doing producing duties, thank God. And so we have a script now written by Jeffrey Kane and Bruce Feinstein, with a story by Michael France.
It's too bad that we didn't have one movie that either only had Wilson or only had Maybaum, because as we pointed out last time, we don't know for certain.
For certain, yeah.
Which one of them is the crazy one who's always throwing in stuff that doesn't make sense, and maybe we'll never know.
Yeah, but again, I think if you look at the fact that Maybaum had written all of the previous Bond films and they
made sense,
usually made sense, it is only the reason that Wilson was the one who was making very convoluted ideas.
Maybaum's the one who, I think he wrote Goldfinger with somebody else, but he's the one who Goldfinger made great fixes to the novel.
He was the one who quoted for making the fix in Goldfinger, yeah.
So he's the one who said that Goldfinger's going to blow up the gold, not steal it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's easier to give him the benefit of the doubt than Mr. Wilson.
And then Mr. Wilson. I hope when Mr. Wilson sees this and he's like, hey, that wasn't me.
Wilson and Broccoli should know that we love them eternally, even if just like these movies. We love these movies. We're here to scrutinize them. We love them.
But if they're watching, they should comment, like, and subscribe.
They're too busy hitting us with copyright strikes.
Oh my God.
To do that.
These assholes, they keep knowing our secrets.
Put him in the basement.
Yeah, it's not them, it's the lawyers doing their job.
There was a fourth writer named Kevin Wade, who's not credited, but the character played by returning actor Joe Don Baker, a.k.a. CIA liaison Jack Wade, a.k.a. the new Felix.
Wait. Okay, go ahead.
The new Felix was named after Kevin Wade, who was one of the writers for this script.
Jack Wade, CIA.
Yeah.
Do you do any gardening?
You do any gardening?
Next, we have our villain played by Ned Stark, a.k.a. Sean Bean, playing Alec Trevelyan. The character was...
Quick toast, a member of the Fellowship. Cheers to that.
Every time a member of the Fellowship.
God.
We didn't do it for Gimli.
Here,
we
wait.
did.
Hold on, Nance. You'll get your chance. Originally, the character was meant to be more of a mentor of Bond. It was named Augustus Trevelyan, and they wanted either Anthony Hopkins or Alan Rickman. Because remember, Anthony Hopkins had just come off of Silence of the Lambs at this point. Alan Rickman had already come off of Die Hard. He was already pretty big at that point. So they wanted that person for the role, but they instead got Sean Bean. And so they rewrote the role. They changed the name to Alec Trevelyan, made him more of a not a mentor, a colleague.
A peer.
Peer, thank you.
Was he going to betray MI6?
It doesn't say, but I would assume like it's still going to be a betrayal story. And I think it's funny because Mission Impossible came out the same year.
Did that with
kind of did the same thing
with help me out with
John Voight.
With John Voight, yeah.
But in that story, John Voight is playing the original character from the television show. Okay. And so it was going to be it was a whole other thing. That's a whole other franchise that maybe we should do on this channel. I don't know. So Trevelyan is in this film, creates the Janus Syndicate. That's spelled Janius, right?
No.
In Roman mythology.
No, Janus.
Is that okay?
Janus.
Janus.
You threw an I in there for flair.
I thought it was an I in there.
Janus.
Whatever. You're doing your thing, McCurdy. It's fine.
We'll
get you help one
day. Bro. Hold on. I need more.
It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay.
Come on, I need more alcohol. Give me a second.
While he pours that drink, round of applause for Scott Lorimer returning.
It was long.
He got out of anger management.
I'm glad you got out of anger management, Scott.
How was it?
A lot of meditation, a lot of planning, convoluted escape.
So in Roman mythology, Janus is the god of duality, which is easy to see because Trevelyan is, he has two identities. He portrays, like you see this version of him as 006, and then obviously he's like the villain of this film.
And then physically, he also has half.
He has two. Yeah, he has half
Two-Face.
He's a Two-Face essentially. Yeah. But what I also found was interesting is Janus is also the god of beginning and endings of conflicts.
Yeah.
Much like the film takes place after the end of the Cold War. Speaking of other roles that were rewritten and actors who played in Charlie's favorite film series, the Russian Minister of Defense was originally intended to be General Pushkin, played by Gimli.
No way.
Yeah. So they wanted him to come back. They wanted John Rhys Davies. They wanted him to come back. But he didn't want to return, so they just rewrote the role to some obscure guy.
That makes suddenly a light bulb just went off in my head. Any screenwriters out there, please write a movie that takes, because I was just thinking, a movie that has two members of the Fellowship. But screenwriters out there, come up with a script where you could take all the members of the Fellowship, and please hurry before Sir Ian McKellen leaves this earth. All 9 members of the Fellowship and puts them into a movie. Whatever that movie may be, write a script that could attract all 9 of them back to because they all love each other.
Please welcome to Reunited Apart Lord of the Rings edition, the final 2 of the Fellowship, John Rhys Davies and Sean Bean.
Oh, where are they? Oh my God. John, hello. John recently was being mute and frozen.
This much time has passed, nothing has changed. We're all the same. It's fucking amazing. I love it.
So they'd love an excuse to all get back together 20 years later.
God, Charlie.
You're
such a fucking fan.
Do that.
You're such a fanboy. Back in MI6, we lost Carolyn Bliss for a different Bond, for a different Moneypenny. Actress Samantha Bond now is the new Moneypenny.
They gave her that role just because of her name. There's so much nepotism in Hollywood. She's a Bond, so she gets the
She
job.
gets to get the role.
It's BS, man. She's actually pretty amazing, though.
What would I ever do without you?
As far as I can remember, James, you've never had me.
The biggest thing in this film that everybody has to comment about is Judi Dench playing the first and only female M.
I hear the new M is a lady.
A lot of people will say that this was due to MI5's director at the time, Stella Remington. Yeah, that's her name, is Remington. MI5 is a security service in Britain. The closest is like Homeland Security.
And as we talked about previously, there were MI
There were
1
tons
through
of different
20
MIs.
or something, and then over time they kind of consolidated into just a few.
And it was Ministry of Intelligence Sector 6, Sector 5. So there was all these different sectors.
Yeah.
Consolidated. MI5 and MI6 are the main two that are still left to this day. She had a striking resemblance to Judi Dench from this time period. So if you look at photos from them, they kind of look like you can see where the costume was like, we're going to make you look like Stella here. That's kind of where they went with the character. However, I did see this today, and I'm not sure if this is true or not, but somebody said that Lois Maxwell came up with the idea of her being the new M. And I don't know if that was actually, that would have been interesting, but I don't know if that's 100% true or not.
She does have an M name in Moneypenny, but to my knowledge in the books, she's never anything more than just a secretary, so it would make no sense if she took over military intelligence without having any kind of military background. So that would really only work if she, as an actress, took over a new role entirely, but that would just confuse people because they'd be like, wait, wasn't she Moneypenny before? But there's also another reason why that would never work, which is that Bond and Moneypenny always had that sexual tension. We talked last time about how there was a bit of a switcheroo done between Q and M, right? So when Bernard Lee, who played M up until he was missing in For Your Eyes Only, he was very much a father figure to Bond, which is straight up out of the books. And then he was replaced by a new actor, and for 2 movies, Octopussy and A View to a Kill, he more or less was that same M. And then as we talked about in the last episode, when Timothy Dalton came on the scene, suddenly him and M were always at odds, and M was less of a father figure and more of a Saunders.
This is highly irregular. I won't be able to get the okay from London for a day at least.
Wait, Saunders.
By the book, pain in the ass. I don't care about your instincts. I want you to follow orders type of M. He felt like a different M entirely, as if the old M had passed for real and was replaced by a new M, much like what we're seeing now. And at the same time, Bond's antagonistic nature with Q switched simultaneously. So what's interesting now is that they have more or less continued that. So that MQ reversal has continued to where Pierce Brosnan's Bond is still just as buddy-buddy with Q. You know, he'll say,
"Oh, grow up, 007.
But they still laugh together. They still kind of enjoy each other's company.
Don't say it.
The writing's on the wall?
Along with the rest of it.
Anyway, so my point being that because of this switch, now we have another new M, and she kind of does both. Their scene together is so beautifully written, where she comes at him hot with,
You don't like me, Bond. You don't like my methods. You think I'm an accountant. A bean counter, more interested in my numbers than your instincts.
The thought had occurred to me.
Good. Because I think you're a sexist, misogynist dinosaur. A relic of the Cold War.
Point taken.
Not quite 007.
UM, new M, who is a lady, and I like to bang ladies, and so maybe I don't respect them as much, or so she thinks.
If you think for one moment I don't have the balls to send a man out to die, your instincts are dead wrong.
Even Tanner is giving her shit because she's now, you know, she'll always talk about the analysts.
He sees himself as the next Iron Man of Russia, which is why our political analysts rule him out. He doesn't fit the profile of a traitor.
Are these the same analysts who said the GoldenEye couldn't exist? Who said the helicopter posed no immediate threat and wasn't worth following?
We found a match. You're missing Tiger.
In the middle of northern Russia.
Seems your hunch was right, 007. It's too bad the evil Queen of Numbers wouldn't let you play it.
You were saying?
It's pretty obvious to me that someone like Ormov is a piece of shit. It's pretty obvious to me that the Tiger helicopter is something that we need to look into a little deeper. Bond is all about instinct, and then you have this new M who's got these analysts and everything, and Bond keeps thinking, your analysts don't know shit.
It was instinct. I'll recall 008 from Hong Kong. He can do it. He doesn't know Pushkin. He follows orders, not instincts.
7i might be the ground station for a secret space-based weapons program called GoldenEye, but...
Our statistical analysis saw they had neither the finance nor technology to implement it.
Numbers were never my strong suit.
I have so much experience. I have 16 movies worth of experience, and you're not listening to what I have to say. You care about what these people who sit at a desk all day have to say.
One thing I would want to add is that something that they really bring up when they started Living Daylights is the idea of Bond being this misogynist character of going around sleeping with all these women. At the time felt like an outdated premise, or the fact that things were changing in the political world, the political climate. And so, or I should say more like the social climate. So the idea that he just sleeps with all these women had kind of changed. And you really do see that in Living Daylights and in License to Kill. He's kind of really with one woman. This movie kind of reverts back to the old Bond because the M being a woman thing doesn't really work as well as it does in this movie, because they revert back to Bond just sleeping with whoever he wants to sleep with kind of thing, or being the charmer. Especially in the beginning of the movie when the person he's with is like not an analyst, but
evaluator.
Like a psych evaluator, and he sleeps with the psych evaluator.
As you can see, I have no problem with female authority.
James, you're incorrigible. What am I going to do with you?
And she comments on him doing that.
Whose boyish charms they wasted on me obviously appealed to that young woman I sent out to evaluate you.
So, like, the fact that they kind of revert back to him being a misogynist or being this just dude who just, sleeps with women as willy-nilly. It's just, that's kind of a testament why I like this movie so much.
Anybody who has a problem with Bond banging chicks is kind of obnoxious to me. And it's not just because I want to, oh yeah, Bond, get it in. It's because when you have spies, right, their whole job is to go somewhere and collect information.
Yeah.
And their means of doing so are, in the case of someone like James Bond, is to weaponize his looks and his confidence and his competency and all that. But more than anything, he happens to be an attractive dude. And he happens to have all these qualities, again, the whole race car driver thing, that women want. And so if he's put in a position where, again, it's what are the stakes? The livelihood of England, of his motherland, right? So what he has to do to pump someone for information is have sex with them.
Pump her for information.
He has to make that sacrifice, as he said in A View to a Kill.
Should certainly bear closer inspection.
We're on a mission.
Sir Godfrey, on a mission, I am expected to sacrifice myself.
These people, these spies, male and female alike, are selected and trained to use every tool at their disposal to get information, including their
Xenia
sex.
does the same thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's a good point. Xenia does the same thing in this story.
Oh my God, he's having sex with all these women. Yeah, because it's for the sake of his country. If you can exploit any weakness, do it. Put short, all's fair in love and war. So you have this guy who is drop dead gorgeous, and he's everything women want. And,
so hot.
And there's the reality of pillow talk and loose lips sink ships, and you take advantage of that. I mean, go watch the movie Red Sparrow. It's such an underrated movie, but Red Sparrow is all about these Russian agents being trained specifically to go somewhere and bang every man and woman alike, bang everybody to get information to bring back to Russia so that they can weaponize it. And then you have people in the audience who are like, that's wrong because it's sexist. He's saving the world, motherfucker, so back off.
Yeah.
I do feel like in the last two films, they've covered that dynamic more than normal. Going back to the last one, License to Kill, even Q is like comforting the girl, like, oh, well, don't give him too much.
Don't judge him too harshly, my dear. Field operatives must often use every means at their disposal to achieve their objectives.
All field agents are told
well,
to
I know,
use
she rolls her eyes at that idea.
necessary to gain
She's like,
knowledge.
I'm sure. sure that's the reason why.
Bullshit.
What I was getting at, though, with the whole M thing is that now that M is a female, had it been Moneypenny, it would have been a bit odd, right? It would have been cute, but there was always so much sexual tension there between her and 007 that to suddenly have Moneypenny in charge, they make a point of Judi Dench's M saying, your boyish charms won't work on me. And thank God, because look at his scene with Moneypenny. It's so hot. It's just so
in this movie.
In this movie, it's just
where
great.
she's like, I think that would be sexual harassment or whatever.
And it's great.
You know, this sort of behavior could qualify as sexual harassment.
Really? What's the penalty for that?
Someday you have to make good on your innuendos.
Maybe I'm the only one, but I don't at all ever interpret that scene as Moneypenny legitimately threatening to report him to HR or something. She's got genuine desire up in them eyes.
And I don't sit at home every night praying for some international incident so I can run down here all dressed up to impress James Bond. I was on a date, if you must know, with a gentleman. We went to the theater together.
Moneypenny, I'm devastated.
She's straight up playing hard to get. I mean, she just told him that she was on a date, and James is like, oh, I might be a little jealous. And she's basically like, I'm still holding out that someday this is going to happen. You know, she does it in like a hard to get, tough way, but this ain't hashtag me too. This is hashtag do me too, please.
Someday you have to make good on your innuendos.
M is this older person, whether male or female, and because M now is female and Bond is somebody who generally is trying to use his charm to get what he wants out of women, they needed to make her more motherly, right?
Well,
Just
yeah.
like M used to be a father figure. And they did that successfully, and they do it beautifully by this very simple scene where she just calls him out on all of that, including having sex with his evaluator just to pass a test, which again is his job. His job is to do just that. And then when he uses it on his own people, M would have to respect that. But that being said, Spycraft is a zero-sum game. Use whatever means necessary to get your way. And they needed to not let that work with M. So they hire Judi Dench, who hits him head on with My Way or the Highway and all that. And then at the last second, they kind of pull the rug on that. And she says,
Bond, come back alive.
So she immediately assumes that motherly role in the same way that Bernard Lee used to have that fatherly role. And it's just perfect.
If I found him first, sir, that might change the situation.
Dramatically. Wouldn't you say? Good day, Bond.
Two things real quick. One, I can't not talk about this movie without talking about the title, GoldenEye. It's the second film not to be named after a Fleming novel and has nothing to do with anything in the Bond novels. However, and we talked about this back in Dr. No again, this episode is titled after Fleming's home in Jamaica, which was named after an operation he had planned in World War II. It dealt with Spain and Gibraltar, and if Spain had gone into the Axis power, but basically they never had to do the operation. It was one that he had himself had planned out. And then speaking of GoldenEye, so I spent a lot of time, and I think you had the names wrong, Charlie, in the beginning. It's Petya and Mischa.
Petya and the Mischa.
I said Mishka and Grishka because those were the twins from Octopussy. I was just fucking around.
Grishka.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Mishka!
I was like, that's not the names of the twins. So the name of the satellites are Petya and Mischa.
Petya and the Mischa.
Petya.
And I was like, okay.
Petya and Mischa.
Petya and Mischa, sorry. Ha 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 ha! Shut up, Scott. So I'm like, these guys, they have to mean something. There's a reason why the writers decided to pick these specific names. I'm like, there's got to be a reason. The first one's Peter. It's Russian for Peter. And the second one is Mischa. And I was like, okay, what's Mischa? And the closest I came up with was it's Hebrew for who is like God, but it's also Michael in Russian. So there's Peter and Michael. So they're two biblical figures.
We got
in the Bible.
Archangel Michael, and we got Peter
the Rock. Peter is the keeper of the pearly gates, like you said, and as well as but he is also known as the first leader in the Catholic Church or just Christianity. And Michael is the archangel in Revelations who defeats Satan. So you could look at it as Peter represents the first or the beginning, which is like the beginning of the film, the beginning of the conflict, and Michael represents the end of the conflict.
Sounds like
Two-faced Roman god.
Janus.
That is not something I looked up. That is all like figured this out. I'm like, oh yeah,
Janus.
that totally makes sense.
Like you said, Janus, beginning and ending, Alpha and Omega. Yeah.
It all fits.
Two-faced Roman god brought to life in Petya and Mischa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
It all fits.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That one chick's two-faced in the intro.
Yeah, it's almost like they did that on purpose. She has two faces.
Almost. But and then a gun comes out of her mouth.
Guaranteed you've seen the Janus films. It's a
It's all the
film company.
Criterion films.
And it's, two faces, one facing one way, one facing the other. I mean, if you think about it, that's the perfect name for a film company. What is a movie if not a beginning of a conflict all the way through the ending of a conflict? And when you get to the end, you just hit play and then it just repeats endlessly. I mean, that's why we have January. January is the beginning of a year and the ending of a year at the same time, and that's where its roots come from. Just a quick detail, a quick production design detail I got to point out. The vault, let's call it, that protects the GoldenEye card thing and the keys opens up like an eye.
Yep.
It opens up like an eye.
The point on top of the computer is also an eye.
Nans, what did you think of this movie?
I liked it.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
I will say this, unlike all the other movies, I think is the first one in this series we've done that I've previously seen. That said, I don't know if I've seen it since it came out. Like, I know I've seen it. I remember different parts, but I don't know if I've seen it more than like my initial viewing, however many years ago.
You were like 6 years old when it came out.
Yeah, I don't know when I would have watched it. I did see like Jurassic Park in theaters. I doubt I saw this in theaters, but I did see it at some point. I always remember what's his face saying, "I'm invincible," and then being frozen.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I am invincible!
So like I definitely have seen this movie.
Boris.
But yeah, I mean I definitely enjoyed it. I'm worried though that it's impacted by nostalgia, maybe? Like, the video game, obviously, in DK mode.
But all the same, I have been accused of somebody named Ryan McCurdy in the past of liking this movie just because of the video game. And the video game is outdated. You can play it here and there just for kicks, but, we have much better games now.
I mean, the AK-47 always looked like a black colored pencil, so...
Yeah, so without bias, though, absolutely without bias, you can come to the conclusion that this movie deserves to be at the top. And I know they're just kind of teaser at where everybody in the comments section keeps saying it's super overrated. I think you have to give credit where credit is due, because this movie quite literally has everything. And it's not like having everything, just having a wish list of things that are going to be in a Bond movie is enough. It has everything, and all of those elements congeal into a very satisfying film. Now, let me go through that. This movie has everything, and I mean that it has absolutely everything. Every little detail we have gone on and on about Bond nauseum over the last 16 episodes has delivered us up to this point where now GoldenEye steps into the fray with PEARS. It has everything! A rock-steady turn and shoot that hits hard and doesn't falter. Incredible prologue that is significantly significant to the overall pre- and post-Cold War story. Betrayals that make sense and revenge that is motivated. A theme song that has that old-school Bond sexiness like Goldfinger over top of the most incredibly sexy title sequence possibly ever. It's just dripping in sexiness. It's hard to not off to it. Gritty, moody, tone-perfect cinematography that is undoubtedly the best up to this point. You only need go back to our discussion about the Living Daylights prison scene to see exactly what I'm talking about. A killer soundtrack that doesn't just take the theme song and orchestrate the melody, but is instead wholly unique to this film. That there's that very specific instrument. I don't know what it is, and I don't want to know what it is, but the A Bond that feels like a continuation of all the Bonds that came before, a man with ice in his veins, living each day and night to the fullest because it could all end at any moment. It's got personal stakes. It's got world-ending stakes. It has a score that is just cool. It's just cool. We haven't had any scores up until now that are just cool. So many fun moments, but never ever goofy and or stupid. A meaningful relationship with the bad guy who has a primo motivation and is active as all hell. Bond engaging in activity that some would call misogyny, but I call awesome. It's got your damn DB5, you Top Gear assholes. Sexually suggestive female henchman name in Xenia Zarevna Onatop, whose name even makes M smirk, and who could believably f anybody up with them thighs. Competent and beautiful Bond girl who just marry me. The most perfect answer to f marry kill that a movie has ever provided, and specifically I'm talking about killing the evaluator, marrying Natalya and
I knew you liked
Xenia.
Xenia, but Natalya is pretty great.
Yeah, it's like perfect. Practical and fun gadgets. Speaking of which, it has a space laser too that you can believe in. The best Q scene ever with the best Q moment ever.
Don't touch that!
It's got that good baccarat. It's got something of a MacGuffin in the form of the GoldenEye key, but it's not the be-all, end-all of the plot. A bad guy layer and final showdown setting that serves a specific function by replicating the GoldenEye operation station. It's got special effects that hold up because it's mostly done practically and with miniatures and all that. A clever twist on the commando scene trope where we get all the explosions and the chaos without actually bringing in the commandos. It's got Bond getting caught hooking up at the end. It's got satisfying and fitting bad guy deaths. It's both a good movie and a good Bond movie. You feel that he's the same guy we've seen save the world numerous times. He's gotten older and he's modernizing post-Cold War, ending in a duel between Bond's equal but opposite, much like our two FSs that came before, Francisco Scaramanga or Fran Sanchez. Alec Trevelyan, equal only in 00 status, but opposite in terms of loyalty to the job and to MI6 and England at large. His shadow, the man always asking him if what he's doing is truly for the sake of Her Majesty's government, all the way up until Bond admits that even after saving London and all of England.
No. For me.
Which is by far the most savage killing line yet. It's classy and fun and dangerous and cool and witty and gritty and real and violent and action-packed and adventurous. But above all else, Alec Trevelyan is a member of the Fellowship of the Ring, and at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
Well, it kind of seems like Charlie likes this movie, but from some of the McCurdy faces I was seeing, maybe not quite as much.
It has everything we've talked about in every episode up to this point. And it all, I mean, like I said, it even has a fucking space laser. It has everything. The only things it doesn't have is it doesn't have Felix.
It's an EMP.
What's the difference? What's the difference?
It's not a laser. It's an electromagnetic.
What's the difference?
You are looking at an industrial laser, which emits an extraordinary light not to be found in nature.
It's literally a satellite
Charlie.
that's like, shoom, you know, it is practically a space laser, you fuckwits.
I get it. I get what you're saying. It's in space and it shoots the things and it does.
EMP delivered via laser-looking thing.
I mean, come on, from a plot device perspective, it's no different from Blofeld's space laser.
EMP became like a huge trope in the 90s. Like there were a lot of films after this movie that would be like, yeah, the weapon is not a nuclear, you know, it's not a nuclear bomb or a space laser, it's an EMP and it's going to wipe out all the electrical stuff. And you see it in movies like Broken Arrow and Ocean's 11 and a bunch of other movies after this movie.
Remember, it even came up in A View to a Kill.
Magnetic pulse.
Yes, Minister.
Discovered after Hiroshima.
One burst in outer space over the UK.
Creates a pulse, A radiation surge.
And everything with a microchip in it, from, well, the modern toaster to the most sophisticated computers and our defense systems, will be rendered absolutely useless.
Literally the only things that this movie doesn't have is it doesn't have Felix Leiter, but instead we get Jack Wade. They wanted to just switch it up. And then it doesn't have Blofeld, but nobody wanted him anyway.
It didn't need Blofeld, but
Yeah.
I think, but when it comes down to basically what you're saying is it had the two main elements that we had been talking about prior that hadn't quite made it there. And the one thing that was License to Kill was missing its classiness, and it also really doesn't feel like a Bond movie overall because it just felt like this 80s action movie. Whereas this movie brings back that classiness, it brings back the feel of what it felt like watching a Sean Connery James Bond movie, or even one of the Roger Moore movies that really felt like you're watching a James Bond movie. And like you were talking about, this movie has more of like a story, not so much a plot, because it does have plot, but it has a story that more deals with, because it's the end of the Cold War, are you still, is Bond still relevant? Like everybody he meets in this movie is all like, you're a dinosaur, Bond.
James Bond. Charming, sophisticated secret agent.
If for crying out loud, another stiff-ass Brit. Your secret codes and your passwords.
The trick is to quit while you're still ahead.
Shaken, but not disturbed.
One of these days, you guys are gonna learn just to drop it.
You're a sexist, misogynist dinosaur.
Still working for MI6, or have you decided to join the 21st century?
Why are you still around? Why are you still doing this? You know, like they're, and even, even Natalya is asking him, like, why do you still kill? Why are you still doing this?
All of you with your guns, you're killing your death for what? So you can be a hero? All the heroes I know are dead.
That's kind of like the dramatic question of the entire film is like, the Cold War is over. Like, why are you still a spy? Why are you, and obviously by the end of the movie, you realize like, there's still a reason to be around. There's still going to be conflicts. There's still going to be things that are going to happen. And we still need people like James Bond.
For me, all of that is communicated in the scene when he pulls up to the casino in the beginning. Just the way the music swells up, you feel his age. Like here he is again, just living out his days and nights. His day stupidly racing a car on a mountainous road. And then at night, he goes to this casino. It's like the war is over, and instead of settling down with Moneypenny, Bond has just lost his purpose, and he's just going to gamble and womanize his way into an early grave. Doing his thing, just kind of waiting to die. And M even says,
I've no compunction about sending you to your death, but I won't do it on a whim, even with your cavalier attitude towards life.
That is literally said when Xenia says, enjoy it while it lasts, and Bond says,
The very words I live by.
You get this sense that this is the guy we've been following for 16, 17 movies up to this point, and he's just continuing into this era where he may not be necessary anymore, but of course he proves very quickly that he is, because there's also this other theme of everybody is just trying to make money.
In 48 hours, you and I will have more money than God.
Well, what are you going to do? Appeal to his heart?
No, his wallet.
You pay dollars?
Of course.
Give me $1 million hard currency.
Free market economy, I swear it will be the end of me.
You have all these people who used to kind of live in this Russian idealistic communist socialist environment where money didn't mean as much, and now suddenly they're living in the this capitalist 21st century where they suddenly have to make money. And then, I mean, what does Alec Trevelyan do at the end of the day?
The world's greatest cash cow.
In the end, you're just a bank robber. Nothing more than a common thief.
He's a bank robber. There really is this theme of the world is moving on past the Cold War, but human nature will always dictate that we need that blunt instrument, James Bond, to fight the good versus evil struggle that will go on from here to eternity.
Ready to save the world again?
After you, 006.
This is the first time that we ever have a story that directly involves a fellow 00.
002.
003.
004. 006.
007.
008. 009.
We've never met any of them. It's always just somebody died.
But we don't see him as a character. They're more of just either a mention or just a plot device for the story to continue. But they're not a character. And this is the first time we actually get a character.
What I really appreciate about the character Alec Trevelyan is that he's something of a meta Bond critic. It's as if he's aware of all the Bond tropes, and he's constantly commenting on them.
James Bond, Her Majesty's loyal terrier. No glib remark? No pithy comeback? I might as well ask you if all the vodka martinis ever silenced the screams of all the men you've killed.
Where is she?
Ah, yes. Your fatal weakness. Or if you find forgiveness in the arms of all those willing women for all the dead ones you failed to protect. 007's loyalty was always to the mission. Your friend or the mission? Never to his friend. The girl, the mission. For England, James. For England, James?
For England!
James? For England.
For England, Alec.
Talking about the prologue, which for me, I think this is just the best prologue. Up to this point, this prologue is not only action-packed, and it's another beautifully far-fetched James Bond-esque, over-the-top prologue where he literally skydives into a plane, which he then pulls out of an impossible dive. It's about the emotion of that moment more than about, like, well, if it was at that angle, that's bullshit. You know, who cares? Because it's glorious.
I was able to see by it, but I was like, that's a tall mountain, man.
But here's my question, though. A more practical thing than arguing about something like that is when it comes to Alec Trevelyan himself, right?
Yeah.
So after you've seen the movie, you know that that whole prologue is bullshit from his standpoint. He may or may not have orchestrated the whole thing. He certainly faked his death. And he says at one point, "You were supposed to die for me."
You're supposed to die for me.
The main question from that is, do you guys think Alec wanted Bond to escape? Or was Bond supposed to die? Because Alec fakes his death there so that he can assume the head of a criminal organization. So it would be to his advantage to let 007 survive so he could report back that 006 had been killed. But at the same time, Alec wanted him to die. So do you guys think that Alec wanted James Bond to escape the prologue?
Yeah, that's actually a tough one.
Charlie, I think you make a good point, but I do think thematically it fits in with the story with how everybody in this movie's like, why are you still part of MI6? And it seems like he's like, his whole thing was, I got to get out of the MI6, get out of the spy for England's world.
Did you ever ask why? Why we toppled all those dictators, undermined all those regimes? Only to come home. Well done, good job, but sorry, old boy. Everything you risked your life and limb for has changed.
And, do things on my own for more financial gain than anything else.
England is about to learn the cost of betrayal. Inflation adjusted for 1945.
So let's lay it out, right? So Alec, again, if you've seen the movie before, you know that he's the traitor. They both show up to the Archangel, which, by the way, your whole Mischa and Petya thing, you have Archangel Michael, Archangel facility in the USSR. Anyway, they show up there. We have our first gadget, which is both a retractable grappling gun and a laser, which is then echoed when he uses a watch laser through the floor. But shows up there, meets up with 006. Their whole mission is to blow up these gas tanks.
Blow the gas tanks!
Because it's a chemical factory.
Yeah. And to Sean Bean's credit, the moment that he says, "For England, James,"
James? For England.
For England, Alec.
and Bond looks at him like, well, yeah, for England. You sense a little bit of like, in that moment. You know, it's like, that's weird. That's a little too Boy Scoutish, right? I mean, James Bond is never so upfront about his patriotic intentions. So you get a sense of like, that's kind of weird. And then next, you get...
It's too easy. Half of everything is luck, James.
And the other half?
Fate.
Yeah.
And then at that point, you have a terrific scene where Bond is surrendering and... Think of it like, what was their plan, right? Ormov and Alec had clearly worked together to create this illusion that he was going to get killed. And this is why I asked the question. It is in 006's benefit to have 007 survive so he can report that 006 was killed. For England, James! And then he gets shot, and he watches him get shot.
Move out. Throw down your weapon and walk towards me. Slowly.
Finish the job, James. Blow them all to hell.
You have 10 seconds.
So the question becomes, who is that theatricality and deception for? Is it for Bond? Is it for the guards? It could be for the guards. It could be that Ourumov didn't want everybody to know that he was working with a Brit. So ultimately it's left vague, but it's just kind of odd that if he wanted Bond dead so badly...
You're supposed to die for me.
Why didn't he just shoot Bond in the face the moment he had him staring down the barrel of a gun? So that's something where I kind of wish there had been a little element of, something that really allowed Bond to get away. In the same way that he said it was a little too easy to get into the gas chamber, it was a little too easy to get away. And then at that point, instead of Alex saying,
"You're supposed to die for me,"
he could say something like, "You thought you escaped, but we let you get away. Who do you think put that plane there on the runway just as you were escaping? That was me."
Are you saying this movie's not perfect?
None of these movies are perfect. Let's be real. This movie's amazing and I love it forever, but
there's
it's
something
not
you
perfect.
brought up though that made me remember this one point about after I watched this the second time. And that's one thing that you will learn if you ever do anything about screenwriting is just how to set up a character so that you like them in the beginning. But what I love about this movie is it sets up Alec so you don't like him right when you first see him. And it's a very subtle thing, and I don't know if you notice it when you watch it. When they go past the guy in the lab, typically you don't want to shoot somebody who's unarmed. But Alex sees the unarmed lab guy who's just like, this is my job, working on the lab, and he shoots the guy. I think instantly you feel like, wait a minute. Just in your subconscious, you're like, maybe I don't like this guy.
Yeah, it's all in that expression, which goes back to our discussions about Bond sometimes being a cold-blooded killer, but for the most part, he's not. Whereas 006 just has this stone face as he's murdering this unarmed guy. Had he been the scientist from On Her Majesty's Secret Service who threw the chemicals at Bond,
exactly. There's that subtle difference of a guy who's just doing his job, and it's just such a subtle thing.
That coupled with the idea of for England, James, and it's like that's kind of if M were to call Bond and say we're doing this for England, you'd be like that's kind of on the nose. That's kind of weird.
I got one other point now that you brought that up as well. Ourumov, there's a point where he starts running for the plane. He's like, "Stop firing!" Where they could still catch him, but he's like, "No, just hold off." And he smiles and watches as he drives towards the plane. He could keep firing and shooting and chasing him, but he's kind of like, let him try. Let's see if he escapes because it's good for us.
Yeah, with some headcanon, you can believe that maybe he wanted Bond to escape.
Wait! Wait!
But I think it's more likely that he just, he's looking at Bond kind of laughing like, really? You really think you're going to survive this? And Bond survives by a thread. And he succeeds in blowing up the facility. So it's like, where's the upside for Ourumov here? And then, Alec gets his face burned. This is another one of those instances where if you think about it too much, you'll go crazy. And that's where I try to imagine that in the background, Ourumov and Trevelyan had some plan that was thwarted. I mean, obviously the goal was to capture Bond and disarm the bombs. So, but that's what I mean. I try to just focus on the fact that it's vague and not pronounced, and that maybe there's an answer if you sat down with those two and they told you the plan. But it's quite clear that Bond wins the day. And really, that's all you need to know. It's not like Octopussy, where the story itself doesn't make any sense because the plot doesn't make any sense. Here, the fundamental story still checks out, even if there's some uncertainties and unanswered questions. And that's the whole thing, right? Is that we're led to believe that 006 died defending his country and all that. Obviously, I think it works. I've seen the movie 4 billion times, and I really don't have a problem with it, but you do at some point have to ask yourself, did he want Bond to survive? And it's kind of, it reminds me of the argument you made, Scott, back in For Your Eyes Only, where you're like, well, Kristatos maybe realized he wins either way, right? Kristatos was like, if Bond dies, he dies, and he's off my plate. If Bond survives, he'll get the ATAC for us. So with this, it's like, Alec is like, well, whatever. I thought about asking Bond to join my scheme. I assumed he wouldn't.
I did think of asking you to join my little scheme, but somehow I knew 007's loyalty was always to the mission.
So we're going to go on this thing together. I'm going to fake my death. If Bond survives, then I'm dead. If Bond doesn't survive, then everybody's going to assume I'm dead anyway. And I get to go assume control of Janus. It really doesn't matter.
You never loved me. You never loved your friend.
Never to his friend.
But that's what's so fascinating about that moment.
Finish the job, James. Blow them all to hell.
You have 10 seconds.
What is Bond doing during that countdown?
9.
He's surrendering. So Bond is surrendering for the sake of Alec Trevelyan, which is why Alec Trevelyan expedites his own execution by yelling out for England James, because suddenly his plan with Ourumov was backfiring because Bond was giving up.
007's loyalty was always to the mission, never to his friend.
Bond knew they were done for, so he did what he could to try to save Alec, even if it meant blowing them all up by cutting the timers in half. So ironically, Alec would have achieved his goals if he would have just let Bond surrender. Instead, they do the whole fake death thing, and then that just pisses off Bond. And we see when Alec dies, that's like the most emotion we ever get out of Bond. And it weighs in on another heavy theme of this movie, which is about trust.
He doesn't fit the profile of a traitor.
It would seem presumptuous, General, to blame this incident on Siberian separatists before the whereabouts of your own people are determined.
The British betrayed them.
He'll betray you. Just like everyone else.
This is true. You either take your chances with me or your fellow countrymen who killed everyone at Serenaya. Trust me.
Trust.
We see what Bond got for trusting somebody so completely.
I trusted you, Alec.
Trust.
That just all weighs in on how heavy this betrayal was.
He was your friend, Trevelyan. And now he's your enemy and you will kill him. It is that simple.
In a word, yes.
How can you be so cold?
It's what keeps me alive.
Bond's entire existence as a spy is about trust. Who can you trust and who can you not trust? And that's the significance of the Jack Wade scene.
Jack Wade has this moment with Bond where, going along with the theme of the movie, you know, Bond is about the old ways, about how to do everything because he's a part of MI6.
In London, April's a spring month.
Oh, yeah? What are you, the weatherman? If for crying out loud, another stiff-ass Brit. Your secret codes and your passwords. One of these days, you guys are gonna learn just to drop it.
And Jack Wade's like, F you.
It's like, I don't care about your stupid British stuff. Come on, let's go. Like, I don't have time for this shit. And obviously Bond's like, no, like the purpose behind this is so I don't know that you are a...
Bond wants to know that he can trust him.
Exactly.
Because he was supposed to respond in kind.
Can I borrow a match?
I use a lighter.
It's better still.
Until they go wrong.
Exactly.
Can I borrow a match?
I use a lighter.
Better still.
Until they go wrong.
Give 007 the password we've agreed with Japanese SIS.
Yes, sir. We tried to think of something that you wouldn't forget.
Yes.
I love you.
I love you.
I have a Kanya bar.
And instead he got a sarcastic remark, which literally goes against everything James Bond stands for. That's why he freaks the f*** out.
Like you said, drop it.
All right. In London, April's a spring month, whereas in St. Petersburg, we're freezing our butts off. Is that close enough for government work?
No. Show me the rose.
And then he's like, yo, show me the tattoo. And he's like, really,
Yeah.
do we have to do it here? And it's a tattoo of a flower on his ass with his ex-wife's name.
Muffy?
Third wife. Jack Wade, CIA.
James Bond. Stiff-ass Brit.
That's a nice move.
Nice car.
Well, this baby hasn't let me down yet. She's an ugly little bitch, but she gets you there. Hey, Bond, you do any gardening?
You do any gardening?
Yeah, I wondered about that.
I didn't get
why?
that.
Okay, so Charlie, you tell your reasoning, and then I'll tell you mine.
So the reason he asks that at first doesn't make any sense. But as the movie goes on, Jack Wade, this new Felix Leiter character, continues to do something in every scene.
Banyan trees. Tobacco plants.
The guy is just into gardening. That's all it is. All it was to set up this weird character tick that he has, which is to point out plants, foliage around him at any given moment. That's all it is.
And it just got left in the movie, but there is more to the scene apparently. Like that scene was actually extended. There was much more to that scene, but I think it also played into the idea that he is Americans are so talkative and just all about all sorts of stuff. And, you know, they'll be on the job, but they'll be talking about, you know, in this case, he's talking about gardening. And then with Bond's case, it's like straight to the point, all about business.
And one day, boom, she had been throwing this extra fertilizer out the window. And then suddenly, there they were. I'm talking about blooms the size of hand grenades. There it is, Kirov's funeral parlor. Like I said, the exchange takes place at 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Right. I love the build of the character from meeting him in Russia in that shitty little vehicle to winding up in the end ordering the entirety of the Marines. They like force that pilot to drop him off in the middle of nowhere, and then suddenly they're surrounded by Marines.
I suppose someone is worth seeing. There's no one within 25 miles, believe me.
Yo, Marines!
Like, that's exactly where the Marines were, like, right around them, just for that comedic moment.
And not only is that done for comedic effect, but also the fact that the helicopters come in out of nowhere. Yeah. It's all done. It's all done to make you laugh. You know,
they know.
And it is funny. It's, you know, because the fact that you have no reaction from the Marines. Jack Wade's not even hiding there. He's just walking around. It's all done just for emotional effect. Like I said about Felix Leiter parachuting.
Yeah, you're writing the movie for not like the logic pieces, which I think a lot of people get hung up on like, you know, sometimes we get hung up on this channel about certain logic things, but I think some of the ones that we talk about are a little more warranted. But
space laser.
Well, not that, but like when we were talking about
goddamn
Thunderball.
laser.
No, but when we were talking specifically about Thunderball, about how the fact that Bond gets out of the water and then he just so happens to run into Viola in the car is just such a very much a convenience.
Yeah, things like that are different.
We brought back Joan Dawn Baker, and you know, some people might say, why would you bring back a character from a previous, or a guy who played somebody else in a previous movie? And as we've seen, that's happened many times before in the franchise. This isn't the first time it's happened. I think for people who only watch maybe the more modern Bond films, they think that's a little weird. But again, if you've watched You Only Live Twice, we have the actor who plays Blofeld in Diamonds Are Forever has showed up 3 films prior. And, you know, it's kind of, I just think it's kind of interesting that even though we have different characters and different people, like it's always a possibility that somebody who played somebody else in a previous movie could come back, but playing a completely different character.
Like I said before, as a kid, it was confusing as hell. As a kid, I'm like, what? This is so weird. And especially watching them on Shuffle, it was always confusing as a kid. But now it's, that was an actor that they liked and they brought him back, you know, 10 years later or whatever. And he made a fun bad guy, but he makes a great ally, you know, just because he's so bright.
I am not here. The CIA has no knowledge, no involvement, absolutely nothing to do with your insertion into Cuba.
Yeah. I think it would have been more interesting had they called. I mean, it doesn't work if he's Felix, because if he's Felix, you already know who Felix is. And I do feel like the movie was trying to say, okay, the last movie, Felix is out of commission now. His leg was basically torn off by a shark. Yeah. So we're not going to bring Felix back anymore.
But that motherfucker can't be in the field in the middle of Russia now.
Yeah. So this works in that we have a completely new CIA guy, and it's Jack Wade, and he's not who Bond is used to.
This one is an admiral.
I like a woman who enjoys pulling rank.
There's this whole scheme with Xenia where she gets the helicopter. They never reveal the face of the guy who is supposed to be the admiral, the imposter of the admiral. And after watching it this time, I'm like, maybe he was supposed to be Trevelyan. Why not show that person?
I think it's supposed to be.
I think it's Oromov. Because Oromov shows up on the plane. I think it's a disguise.
But when you watch it, when you rewatch that scene, they never see the guy's face.
They don't.
They didn't fly from France or whatever.
You could fly from France
all the way to
Russia in that helicopter.
But that's stupid that they flew straight there. No.
They wouldn't. They would.
But Trevelyan looks too young to disguise as that admiral.
Whether that second pilot was Trevelyan or just anybody else, it's probably Trevelyan because they hide his face.
Yeah.
Had it been Oromov, they would have showed his face.
Yeah.
Had it been anybody else, they would have showed their face. But because they don't show the face, you can trust that it's Trevelyan. And then later when it's Oromov, because clearly they stopped to get lunch at some point, and they brought in Oromov to take the place of
random
Trevelyan.
gas stop.
It doesn't take a fucking genius to put that together.
Yeah. But it's just one of those little subtle things about the movie. Like we were talking, like I said earlier about, how Alec kills the scientist in the beginning of the movie. And then the fact that we never see who that extra person is. It's one of those little subtle things about the movie that I really enjoy. I love the little subtle stuff that we kind of just gloss over.
Yeah.
But when you go back and rewatch the movie and you know how the movie ends, you're like, maybe that's Trevelyan. But they don't say it. It's a very good possibility it was him.
I'd say 99.9% chance that is Alec, strictly because they don't show his face.
Based on the fact they kept it so secret. But still, I just don't, he's too young to disguise as the Admiral. I don't know.
No, but Scott, what I'm saying is that the guy who was the Admiral imposter doesn't have to be the pilot. They could be two different people, but the pilot is most definitely Sean Bean, as we see later on. Even they ride a helicopter together. I mean, they've flown together before. Clearly, that's why they're hiding his face. The Admiral imposter may or may not be Trevelyan, but it doesn't really matter. Maybe that ID granted them access, and then Xenia let Alec in through the back door or something. Whatever.
Yeah.
A short, fat guy with a beard doesn't have to be the same one flying the tiger out of there.
I get what you're saying now.
I think they're the pilot. I think that's the pilot.
It could be, but it doesn't have to be.
It's one of those things where it's a nitpick. It's like it could be one thing or the other. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
but
they could have shown a scene in a bathroom where there's a beard and a uniform and a hat laying on the floor.
Sure, but then
we don't need that.
It's like they could have gotten into the plane. That's how they escape. That's how they get out of the clutches of Bond. All that good stuff.
Kiros funeral parlor, 4 o'clock this afternoon.
There are two things that kind of bother me about this movie. One of the things is the complication between from going to talking to, and remind me of the character's name, the Russian mafia guy.
Valentin Zakovsky.
Hagrid?
Hagrid.
You're right. That is Hagrid. Oh my God, it's Hagrid. Hagrid's in this movie. Oh my God.
You Harry Potter freak. You're such a nerd.
Harry Potter's in this
movie? Let's talk
Hagrid.
about Boromir. I want to talk about Boromir.
So anyway, he's in the movie. So one of the things it's not a huge issue, but it does kind of leave to this very unclear thing where it leads from him. He goes to talk to him to basically get an introduction with Janus. And it doesn't, and the one thing that I'm always confused with, and maybe you can point this out, is Bond explains this whole scheme.
200 pounds of C4 explosives hidden in a casket. Your man drives the hearse in. The money's exchanged. Their man drives the hearse out. Their man will be arrested with the explosives. Your man will make a miraculous escape with the money. Your money.
Your guy's going to come in with the money and the casket, and the other guy's going to do this, and there's going to be this whole trade-off. So in our minds, I'm thinking, okay, we're going to see this scene, and then we don't. So really, it's just him explaining something.
It's like the stinger plot of License to Kill.
Felix gave me a letter at his wedding from the Attorney General granting Heller immunity if he gets the stingers back.
Heller said he would, and there's a letter from Leiter and immunity and all that. And if you're not paying strict attention, you don't know what's going on. But then, again, with that movie, all you need to know is what Franz is doing bad stuff with stingers and he needs to die anyway.
Yeah.
And then in this movie, all you need to know is, it checks out, but all you need to know is, I'm going to do a favor for you, and then you're going to get me in touch with Janus, because they don't show it. So if you're not listening, you'll miss out on it.
So what do you know about Janus?
Zilch. Zips. No one's ever seen him. But the man's connected up the gazoo. KGB, military. Best thing I can do is point you in the direction of his competition.
Who is the competition?
An ex-KGB guy. Tough mother. Got a limp on his right leg. Named Sukovsky.
Valentin Dmitrovich Sukovsky?
Yeah. You know him?
I gave him the limp.
When he's pulling up to Zukovsky's, Jack Wade asks him, what are you going to do? The last guy that was here, they killed and all that. He says, I'm going to appeal to his wallet. And then he lays out this whole plot where Zukovsky can make a quick buck because according to Bond, and according to Valentin Zukovsky himself, he's not really doing that well financially. He's just kind of getting by.
I mean, he makes that joke about, it's like, I have 6 helicopters, and you're like, you have 3, and none of them work.
I have 6.
3. None that fly.
Who's counting?
Hey, here's a get-rich-quick scheme, and then in exchange, you're going to set me up with Janus.
I want you to set me up with Janus. Tell him I'm asking about the chopper. You're going to meet me tonight at the Grand Hotel Europe.
And then cut to Bond in the pool. Xenia Zargevna Onatop shows up, and she takes him to Janus, and that's it. And then the moment we realize that Janus is Alec Trevelyan, it's just off to the races.
Explain to me his motivation again about his family and the Cossacks. The Cossacks.
He's a Lienz Cossack.
You knew, didn't you? He's a Lienz Cossack.
It's in the past.
He'll betray you. Just like everyone else.
The Lienz Cossacks were Russians who were working for the Nazis.
Gotcha.
They were like the Tories or whatever in the U.S. These people who were working for the British during the American Revolution. The Allies found the Lienz Cossacks, who were Russians working for the Nazis.
Group that worked for the Nazis against the Russians. Second World War.
You know your history, Mr. Bond. At the end of the war, the Lienz Cossacks surrendered to the British in Austria, believing they would join your government and wage war against the communists.
Oh, great, we're going to go live in Britain and everything's going to be great. And the British were like, F you, and they sent them back to Russia.
Sent them back to Stalin, who promptly had them all shot. Women, children, families.
Mine survived the British betrayal and Stalin's execution squads. But my father couldn't let himself or my mother live with the shame of it.
His dad killed himself and his mom. And so Alec just wants revenge on this horrible thing that happened to his people as driven by the British.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. That one scene is very exposition heavy, and it's not it's just a lot of information that if you're not paying attention, you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, for someone who's seen this movie 17 million times.
I've seen this movie a lot. It's just, I always forget.
And speaking of Valentin Dmitrievich Sokovsky.
Valentin Dmitrievich Sokovsky?
Xenia Sergeyevna Onatop.
Arkady Grigorovich Orumov.
Natalia Fyodorovna Semyonova.
Natalia Fyodorovna Semyonova.
Natalia Fyodorovna Semyonova!
Russian names, they always come in threes. I know we as Americans have middle names. Who cares? We don't really have a use for it other than like the fact that there's a million John Smiths, so you just have John Abraham Smith just to differentiate from the other John Smiths. But Russian names always come in threes. It's like your last name, given name, and I think your middle name is then they use something called a patronymic, which basically means that you take the father's name and you add a vich or an ovich for men, ovna or ovna for women, which just means son of or daughter of. Natalia Fyodorovna Semyonova, Xenia Zargevna Onatop. That means that like Natalia's father's name was Fyodor, so she's
Instead of
Fyodorovna.
eyes, or
Yeah, so that's how the names work. So that's why you always have their names in threes. That's like Russian names are cool.
Yeah, but the other thing that I will say is like on the fence of if I like it or not. Like I'm just like, this is the music, and it's not that I hate all of the music. I love the thing that you were talking about is the sound effects.
Wait, it's
yes,
I
love that sound effect.
It is a hollow pipe. It is a steel object hitting a hollow pipe from far away. Which that sound, every single time I heard that sound, I was like, oh.
But if you think about it, it's
takes me back
saying something about the movie.
It's the sound I make when I see Natalya or Xenia.
But if you watch the intro, it's you have the sickle and hammer, and it's supposed to be like the sounds or the echoes of the USSR essentially, or the Soviet Union, and it's now dismantled.
Hello, James.
But I do think there are times when the music isn't the best, and it's like...
And I know you're talking about the car scene.
The car scene. But there's other scenes that I'm like...
I'm talking about the
but
ending
it's not
credits.
bad.
That's a terrible song.
I didn't play GoldenEye on Nintendo. I just never played that game.
Yeah, who cares?
Like a lot of other kids did. And I'm only saying that because there are no, I didn't. But I'm saying that because I do think that sometimes if it's on the soundtrack of a game and you've played it a lot, that will like play with your emotions because you're like, I like this game a lot. And I remember you listening to the music. I like the music. I like parts of the music. I just don't think the music is the strongest in parts. In fact, I didn't realize this. I was reading this, but apparently Martin Campbell didn't like the music originally done by the composer for the tank scene. And he had to have it completely redone because he didn't like the finished version. So the version that you have in the movie is done by a different composer entirely.
I pointed out in depth the first thing that I really disagree with this movie, which is the whole Boris Grishenko riddle. I think that was not thought out at all, and I just try to ignore it. As much as I said the scene with M, I think is so strong. I think the dialogue is just perfect, and it just sets up the new M perfectly and the character of Bond perfectly in this new century. But conversely, I think the weakest part of the movie is the scene when Alec reveals himself in the statue yard. Not only is his delivery kind of odd, he's just a little too...
Son went to a climbing accident, and my sixth parent was betrayal. Remember, ironies.
But specifically, and I think it's because of this one line, but Bond says,
Hence, Janus. The two-faced Roman god come to life.
It wasn't God who gave me this face. It was you.
It wasn't God that gave me this face. It was you. And I see what they're, from a screenwriting standpoint, I see what they're trying to do, but that line doesn't make any sense. It is a complete non sequitur, and I hate it. And that's it. Those two things. The riddle, and it wasn't God that gave me this face. Other than that, I love this movie endlessly.
That did not bother me at all.
I think it's so dumb.
I didn't even catch that, really.
It's so dumb. It wasn't God gave me this face. I wasn't talking about God. What are you talking about? I mean, McCurdy goes on for a while about how this movie's secretly smart in its naming schemes, and that's all accurate. And then Alec Trevelyan steps in here, and he doesn't know the difference between polytheism and monotheism. I mean, I get it. It's like the nitpick of all nitpicks, but it's...
Every time I watch this movie, the scene that always like I'm just like, wait, what? Is the first time Natalya and Bond kiss and have a romantic moment.
12 seconds later.
Rewatching it, I was like, this feels off. Like, it just feels really sudden. It's the lead up into it feels so off to me because it's like, we just had a lot. Hold on.
Why?
I'm not finished yet.
Why? Don't forget about The Living Daylights. This all started with The Living Daylights, where out of nowhere, Bond suddenly decides to get romantic with Kara.
I'm posing as Koskov's friend to see what leads I can get from her.
5 minutes later.
What's wrong? Why do we stop?
I arranged it.
That makes sense. That one made sense. The one in License to Kill is the weird one.
But the weird thing is this, that Bond is trying to stay close to Kara so that he can maybe get a lead on where Koskov is, and nothing comes of it. Like, absolutely nothing comes of it. And so in my view, I'm like, that's quick romance that should have been saved for later, like in Afghanistan. And the main misstep for me is that in this movie that's like, okay, Bond's now one-woman man, we never really feel as though he actually falls in love with Kara. Then fast forward to License to Kill. We have our boat scene.
The boat scene's the worst.
Leave it to the professionals.
Look, pal, I was an army pilot. I have flown to the toughest hellholes in South America, and I will not have you lecture me about professionalism.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
You pay the fuel?
You get the plane.
Deal.
I can compute the thing with Kara, and I can maybe justify it. I think it's kind of but I can justify it compared to License to Kill, where, you know, it's, oh, we ran out of gas, and then they're negotiating the price, and we all agreed they should have saved that for later.
Yeah.
But then fast forward to this, and here's your series of events, right? Where do they meet?
They're in a helicopter, and she yells at him, and he saves her life. He saves her life, and she starts running away, and then she's like, no, let me go. I'm trying to get out of here.
Yeah. And then they get arrested, and they're taken back to Mishkin's place.
And he's like, I can help you. And he's like, I don't know anything.
Who are you?
I work for the British government. And the more you tell me, the more I can help you.
But I don't know anything.
Then let's start with what you do know.
I just chalk it up to the adrenaline thing. Like,
I know. And Charlie's going to say, Charlie, I know
adrenaline makes people horny, but that doesn't necessarily work in a movie. I would say that this works because you have the helicopter thing, which at that point, she's not ready to trust Bond. Even though Bond just saved her life, she's kicking him in the shins and stuff. Then they get arrested, and Bond explain they are literally locked in a cell together to where Bond has to explain the situation. And obviously, she's freaked out because she already tried to trust Boris.
It's Boris! It's Boris! It's Boris! Hello!
And Boris betrayed her, so she can't trust a soul.
Okay,
and she's
that makes
got this
sense.
absolute stranger. Who, yes, just saved her life, but she doesn't care. It could be
Doesn't know
another.
him.
It could be another trick for all she knows. Yeah, she says, "I don't even know your name."
They're going to kill me, aren't they?
Trust me.
Trust you. I don't even know your name.
So she starts to open up to him. Then Mishkin comes in. Then she tells Mishkin,
It was Urumov. General Urumov set off the weapon. I saw him do it.
And just when it could be safe for her, Urumov goes ahead and kills, I keep wanting to say Pushkin. Mishkin. God, I wish Gimli was here. And then suddenly they're on the run. She gets captured, Bond escapes, and then Urumov has her in the car as they're speeding off and Bond's in pursuit on the tank. And you can pinpoint the exact moment to the frame when Natalya Fyodorova Semyonova falls in love with James Bond. She smiles, seeing that this guy she doesn't even know is in pursuit. She has this smirk on her face of like, whoo, and you can tell the super soaker is on.
I noticed the smile, and then I thought to myself, has she been smiling this whole time? And then the next time we see her, she's not smiling.
The next time she's not smiling because Bond is barreling down an alley he can't fit in, and he's probably killing a ton of grandmas and grandpas and women and children, and she's like, what are you doing? So then when you get to the train, she survives the derailment and all that, and then survives the escape. And not only that, but now take her position, right? She's survived all this stuff. She's got so much adrenaline flowing through her body and her vagina. And she's sitting there across from James Bond, and she's asking him questions. And James Bond looks at her with that beautiful response of,
Do you know how to disarm the weapon?
I suppose that depends on what kind of weapon you're talking about disarming.
and she gives him a look of like, I'm gonna out of this guy. Like, it's, if you follow that, if you're just looking at that moment.
Charlie, no, hold on.
That's the thing, that's fair.
I got one more point. To that. No, I disagree, Charlie. I think that was building her up. The point that gets a woman going is women obviously hate when you don't pay attention to them or you hate them.
Yeah.
The point that got her was, I don't care, kill her.
Yeah.
She means nothing to me.
On the train, when you told him to kill me and that I meant nothing to you, did you mean it?
Kill her. She means nothing to me. Yes.
That's what got her right there, is when she was like, I need to find out if this guy actually gives a shit or not. Because he just said he didn't. That's the point
It's called
that got
push-pull, motherfucker.
Everything was building it up. The tank, the fucking get captured. To when he said, I don't give a shoot.
Pay attention, McCurdy, you could learn something.
That's what got her right there.
Thanks.
Yeah.
As soon as he's like, F her, shoot her. I don't care. She's like, wait, no, I'm going to f this guy and make him care.
I think the romance works because it's cold Bond.
It's
right?
another one of those weird, not the romance, but the scene that basically highlights romance is the one time in the movie that the movie literally says, all right, we're going to park here. We're just going to park here, guys. We're going to stop the movie. They're gonna have a little moment on the beach, and then we'll start the movie up again after they had their little romantic scene. But we're gonna stop the movie. It's the one moment in the movie that I don't hate, but it definitely feels like the movie stops very abruptly. Yep. And then it continues. But don't hate it.
But at the same time, though, it works for me because, again, showing this older Bond who, when he says...
He was your friend, Trevelyan. And now he's your enemy and you will kill him. It is that simple.
In a word, yes.
Unless he kills you first.
Listen to me.
How can you act like this? How can you be so cold?
It's what keeps me alive.
I believe him so far as this is me you're talking to. Ice in his veins Bond, who is, I survive because I'm emotionally unavailable to the world. That's just why. That's why I'm still. That's why my heart is still beating. That's why I'm still going to casinos late at night, because I'm so good at being emotionally unavailable. Whereas even when they're for me, that scene's kind of reflected in the moment when they're flying in the airplane, and she's like, "Turn here, bearing 184."
Bearing 184.
Yes, sir.
And then she laughs. She's like, "Ha!" And you know, if I'm Bond, I'm like, you know, the moment you start getting all happy-go-lucky about this spy stuff, you're gonna get fucking killed. And then 2 seconds later, a missile comes out and nearly kills them. And that's where Bond's world is, don't enjoy this. Don't have fun doing this. You know, I know you're here and you and I are having a bit of a romance, but our lives are at stake. And then, but it's great to see her maturity comes to a head when she says,
"Go ahead, shoot him. He means nothing to me."
That's where she's kind of owning up to, I live in this space. And then on top of that, you have the Bond saying, "Do you know how to operate this little handgun here?" And she's like, "Yeah, motherfucker, you know."
Do you know how to use one of these?
Yes.
Good. Stay out of sight.
And that's where the balance of Natalya is so well struck. I mean, sometimes Bond has to teach a woman how to shoot a gun. Sometimes they already know. She's a Russian that works on a military base, so it's no shock that she already knows how to operate a firearm. But she's more than just a computer geek. She's not really a geek at all like Boris.
You're such a geek.
She just works on the guidance system.
She works on the guidance system.
But she uses that very simple knowledge to their full advantage to save Bond's ass.
Retro rockets firing.
It will burn up somewhere over the Atlantic.
Deal with it.
And then after that, he sends her away. You know, he's like, "Hey, like, go cook me dinner." But then she goes and snatches up the helicopter that saves his ass. Just like Domino or Tatiana, she ends up saving Bond's ass. So she perfectly rides that line of damsel in distress sometimes, but she's never truly helpless.
You either take your chances with me or your fellow countryman who killed everyone at Serenaya.
I've never been to Serenaya.
Your watch has. Frozen by the GoldenEye blast. And I'm willing to bet you're the one who climbed up the dish to get out.
She's just like a perfect balance of somebody that Bond needs to rescue here and there for forces beyond her control, but then otherwise she's just this tough broad ordering Bond around. It's such a perfect balance.
The penalty for terrorism is still death.
And what's the penalty for treason?
Oh, stop it, both of you! Stop it. You're like boys with toys. But don't stand there. Get us out of here.
Yes, sir.
Xenia!
Because of all of this, she's obviously my favorite Bond girl. The only negative I have to say is that I think she's too hot. I think she has too much makeup on. I know it's a Bond movie, but all the same, they should make her a little bit plainer. Maybe later she dresses up kind of like what other Bond girls do, you know? They're like kind of normal, and then there's a moment where they get hot, you know? She's just kind of hot throughout in an odd way. They should have saved that for only Xenia. Xenia should be the one with all the makeup. So anyway, I wanted to talk about Xenia at the Baccarat table.
Baccarat.
I think this scene is great, but Bond sits down and he says,
It appears we share the same passions. 3, anyway.
I count 2. Motoring and Baccarat.
What did Bond mean by the third? What's the third?
Sex.
I think he meant like
fucking.
Probably.
Because she says, well, I hope the third is what you excel at.
But did they have any interaction where they expose that that's something that they're like motoring? Sure, they have the full chase scene. Baccarat, they're sitting there playing Baccarat.
It's in the look, you know what I mean? It's in the look.
Yeah.
But, it's not like he watched Xenia jump on top of the Admiral or anything. So I've always been curious, did Bond mean that? Or maybe he meant horticulture?
Motoring, Baccarat, and
Gardening?
We haven't talked about music in several episodes. We have Aha did Living Daylights. Gladys Knight did License to Kill. Which were both kind of, it was like Aha was a natural answer to
the 80s.
A View to a Kill. Where
you
they're
had
both
Duran
very
Duran,
80s.
and then it was Aha.
And then you have the most violent Bond movie on record, and you have this romantic. It's somewhat out of place. And then you have this song, which
song.
again is just, this song goes back to Goldfinger. You could bang to the song. But just give us your thoughts on those 3 songs real quick, Scotty.
Honestly, out of the 3, if I'm ranking these in order, it's going License to Kill, Living Daylights, then GoldenEye.
You don't like this song?
I don't not like this song. All 3 of these are in my top 10. But GoldenEye would rank probably like 7 to 10 out of the whole Bond series. It's up there. It's good, but it's, I don't know. License to Kill, brilliant song.
I would say that the movie is really, really good. I just don't think the music for the movie is the best, but it's not the worst.
GoldenEye, it's a great opening song. It's up there. It's not the best. It's not better than Goldfinger. It's not better than From Russia with Love, the actual From Russia with Love, not the one they played in the fucking movie. A View to a Kill is above GoldenEye. I think Living Daylights is above GoldenEye, and License to Kill is above GoldenEye. And GoldenEye's up there. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's a great song, but
we talked about the difference between a general Bond song, like a theme song, and a sexy Bond song, right? Again, the big horns, the Goldfinger,
yeah, orchestral.
And with this, you have GoldenEye, like it's very reminiscent of, which is the opposite of the Living Daylights. They're very different.
It is, but I don't know. Again, you're asking me to compare 2 things: 1, a brilliant orchestral Bond song, and 2, the 80s, which is by far my favorite genre by like miles. The Living Daylights and GoldenEye are like here. It like 1 and 1, replaceable. But they're both in the top 10.
I could have just used the Bond theme at the end, but instead we have this song.
That song. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Song.
Yeah.
Why put that song at the end of this film? You had a powerful intro with Tina Turner.
Is it going?
Then you put some soft ass white guy at the end of the song to be and love.
Here's the thing: if you watch movies at the time,
nobody cares.
Here's the thing: if you watch movies at the time,
terrible.
There's a lot of films that have this soft, very soft music. Romantic music at the end of the movies, and a lot of it's just you're leaving the theater. It just kind of signals the audience like, "Yep, the movie is over.
Ahead,
you can go home."
Fall asleep.
Versus something like because Charlie had pointed out when we were talking about Iron and Majesty's Secret Service how that movie ends with the credits as you're leaving the theater.
Tracy is dead. She's dead. She's dead. She is dead. She's dead. Tracy is dead.
I just feel like it's not something I'm going to nitpick, but it's also something I'm just saying that there are a lot of movies that the end credits are very soft. music because it just signals the movie is over, you know. And you got to also remember back then, you know, you had to figure out other ways of selling merchandise for these movies. And a great way of doing that was selling soundtracks for films. So you would be like, okay, well, we're going to have the Bond theme is going to be one of the songs. We're going to have songs from the soundtrack. We're going to have the theme from the beginning of the film. So how can we make more money and make a soundtrack for this movie? Oh, we'll have a song at the very end credits that we're going to put in. And a lot of movies did this. I mean, this wasn't just the only time they did this.
I fully understand that,
and
but
they
that
start
is the
doing
worst song they could have fucking picked.
Sure. I mean, it just doesn't bother me, but I'm just saying that's kind of the thing.
I've never liked that song. It just kind of...
Dramatic ending, Marines, helicopters, and love. Love.
Sure.
Yeah.
What is this?
Sure.
Sidestepping from the music, is this the first one where we have computer graphic stuff?
You're talking about CGI?
Yeah,
versus-
CGI.
Okay.
I mean, definitely the missiles turning around at the helicopter. The whole credit scene thing.
Yeah, the CGI is used exactly the way CGI should be used, which is very subtly. So it still holds up. But there really isn't a lot of it. Most of it's miniature work.
It stands out. Like, you're like, oh, suddenly a miniature.
I will say it is not as bad as The Spy Who Loved Me or any of the Roger Moore era or even like Moonraker. Like, I think it's a step in the right direction because it's something a little more grounded, a little more real.
The base in the building exploding, the MiGs exploding.
The radar and the fact that they play it backwards to make that effect.
I noticed the backwards playing.
Yeah, it's like water doesn't drain like that, you know, where it's shooting up. So obviously for some logistical reason, it was easier to pump water in. So film it forward and then reverse the footage. So it looked like water was coming out rather than filling the lake with water and then naturally draining it. Who knows why? It's clear they just didn't make any of the miniatures big enough. But, you know, this movie predates Lord of the Rings, so what do you expect? They should have made all of them bigger, especially the radar that had to deal with water. Because if you don't make a miniature big enough, water kind of looks off, right? Mm-hmm. So you can tell that the water is just kind of lapping up against a diorama. They needed to make it bigger to make the water not look big, if you know what I mean.
I mean, Charlie, they probably made that thing pretty big to begin with.
Yeah, sure they did, but it just has to do with the nature of water. And if you don't make your scale model big enough, it's literally that the water looks big.
Yeah.
And it just has to do with the physics of water. And that's why you need to make your scale model a certain size so that the water looks natural. But the Bond crew didn't learn this lesson until Casino rolled around.
Basically, it's at third scale. The reason we're at third scale is because water still scales okay at that. And then the dressing becomes the real sort of miniature work.
But I still think it all holds up a lot better than just CGI.
That satellite is real.
And it did explode like 5 years ago, whatever.
They blew it up?
Really?
It didn't blow up. I think there was something happened and it just collapsed.
I think we know exactly what happened.
I think we're getting to the point where we're just like nitpicking the movie because there's because the strength of the movie is definitely the story and the plot and the action. I mean, the action also is great. Like all of the action scenes in this movie. But that was something I wanted to comment on after rewatching this. All the Bond movies up till this point, we had talked about it had gotten, I think the franchise in a way had gotten stale because it was like everything felt like very much in-house, right? We had the same director, the same writer, the same producers, the same effects team. Like everybody was the same. There was no new blood. It was just like, yeah, we've been doing it this way forever. Like we're going to keep doing it this way forever.
Bond walks into the office. Moneypenny is sitting there at the desk. She's frame right. Bond walks frame left through the double door into M's office. And it's the same thing over and over. This is the first time that you feel this
breath of fresh air and everything's new. Yeah. And I also like how, remember we talked about the writing in some of these movies, it was you had the producers in the room and you had the writer in the room, the director, and the stunt coordinators, because the stunt coordinators are like, yeah, we could do this skydiving thing. We could do this thing where a giant truck tips on 2 wheels. We
Now
could
write
do,
a scene around it.
Yeah, write this around it. And I felt watching this movie, I don't feel that. I think people will comment about the bungee jumping because I think bungee jumping did become popular right around the early 90s. That's maybe the only little thing. But I think it still serves the story just well enough, and it doesn't feel like any scene particular is like the stunt coordinator saying, hey, we could do this. It just feels like they wrote a script first, then decided what stunts they could, maybe put into the story that would service it.
As we've gone through these films, obviously, From Russia with Love, Dr. No, a lot of those towards the top are just timeless classics, brilliant films.
Yeah.
You can't put them side to side with these films alone on, money and graphics, etc. But we were all longing for, I think, something new. I know I was, and it was refreshing watching License to Kill in this film, just kind of slowly updating.
I honestly believe that this is the movie that not only delivers everything you could ever want in a Bond movie, but is also just one of the best movies ever made. I'm not sitting here saying it's Oscar worthy or anything like that, but just as far as these Bond movies go, this one, I think I love every moment of it. I mean, other than the little nitpicky things that we pointed out so far.
Chair face.
It's so cohesive. It just nails its tone from beginning to end while simultaneously managing to be dramatic, to be funny, to be light, to be dark. It somehow manages all these things along with just this compelling story about an evil James Bond. And it just never falters in that. It doesn't have any of the stuff that stuck out like a sore thumb that we've complained about, especially through the Roger Moore era. If you are following along with all of the movies up to this point and everything that we've commented on, this movie is obviously at the top of our list. And I rewatched Goldfinger today because that is at the top of our list right now. And I can poke a million holes in that movie, but I love it. I love Goldfinger. That movie is so enjoyable, and all of its shortcomings don't mean anything next to its emotional punch and just how much fun it can be. The reason it's at the top is, a lot of reasons, but the main one above From Russia with Love was that, as McCurdy pointed out, Bond is just always underestimating Goldfinger, and then Goldfinger, who's just this fat schlub, is just besting him out of nowhere, and Bond can't even understand it himself. And then you have your whole plot twist of blowing up the gold rather than stealing it. But all that aside, GoldenEye, it's like they took this 6-year hiatus. They cleared house entirely, and they completely modernized, and they brought in a new Bond, and they brought in this director who just got it. And this Martin Campbell guy, he didn't give us no fucking double take pigeons. He delivered on everything that Bond used to be, but he also brought it into this new era of what we understand to be modern films. Even down to something I've mentioned before, which is that you should put some care and some thought into the first shot of your hero, and Martin Campbell does that in this movie. He opens it up with just touches of Bond, just pieces of him, not the whole picture, until he's revealed in this really bizarre fashion that is very much a Bond-like thing, to kind of have fun with your bad guy by hanging upside down as he's taking a shit.
Beg your pardon. Forgot to knock.
It's not like some of the previous movies where Bond's just there. He's just there. Oh, there he is. He's laying in bed. He's skiing. There's no thought or care put into his first appearance, but with this one, there is. At the end of the day, you have to give credit where credit is due. Again, if you watch the last 16 of our episodes and you get to this point, it just seems obvious that this movie should be at the top. It's just an explosion of not only new and a new approach, but just a solid story and a solid Bond. I mean, you got to give credit where credit is due. This movie is incredible. It just brings us into modernity beautifully.
I'm glad you said modernized, Char, because I was saying at the beginning this was like one of the first ones I remember seeing. Rewatching it this time, I don't know how long it's been since I last seen it. It just felt like an modern movie. And I was worried about nostalgia and the fact that it felt like a modern movie getting in the way of ranking it against the other ones we've seen so far. But
yeah, modern doesn't mean good.
No.
I can point you to
No,
a
it doesn't.
million modern movies that suck.
Oh yeah.
But this
For
one,
sure.
and that's what I mean. Give credit where credit is due.
I had that same concern, Nathan, of, ranking nostalgia versus old, brilliant Bond films. The ones that obviously we didn't grow up on. But after rewatching this film, I tried to remember all the points that we've ranked or argued about on previous films. 1, bad guy. 2, plot, which I think I've figured out that Man with a Golden Gun, License to Kill, and this film, I really enjoy personal vendetta Bond. Personally, I love that, but this one brings that balance of, okay, well, I'm still going to save the world, but no, Alec, this is for me, not for country, but I'm still going to save the world. Brosnan, an actor that, like you said, McCurdy seems to really care.
I think a lot of people want to hate on Pierce Brosnan naturally because he's probably the prettiest, which means he's going to have that target on his back. Forget about Remington Steele. The guy's always rocking the blue steel. He happens to be attractive, but he's no pretty boy. He's significantly physical as well as being, having an attractive face. And it just lends to the whole idea I was getting at before about how him being attractive is just kind of part of things. It allows him to do his job better.
Who are you?
Bond. James Bond.
My name's Bond. James Bond.
My name is Bond. James Bond.
Bond. James Bond.
Name's Bond. James Bond.
For the millionth time, let's put that in context. This is absolutely male fantasy, categorically so, but it's anchored in the truth, which is that the character James Bond is everything that men want to be and that women want to be with. And within his universe, he is literally handpicked by the government to not only be a killer, but to have the ability to approach the most beautiful women in the world and make them fall in love with him so that they're willing to help him save that world. That's nothing to shake a stick at. There are only 6 men that have ever played James Bond, and each of them is the type of fella that no woman would ever say no to.
It was the job we were chosen for.
And it's not just about being attractive, it's about embodying the ability, that capableness, that competency that attracts these women more than just a pretty face, So I think that I think a lot of people want to hate on Pierce for being that, but I think he just embodies Bond beginning to end. Oh, yeah, sure. It would be interesting to see Dalton in this movie.
You're late, 007.
I have to stop in the bathroom. It's too easy. No more foreplay.
It'd be interesting to see Connery in this role, as we always say. But Pierce fits this movie wonderfully.
He didn't feel shoehorned in at all. Pierce really took up the reins, and it was such a natural in it.
Yeah, there's one word that Ian Fleming often uses to describe James Bond's appearance, and that's the word cruel. And Pierce Brosnan doesn't have that automatically. He'll show that cruelty, but he doesn't have it built into his face the way that Connery does. But he can access that cruelty, which, if you ask me, makes him all the more dangerous.
No. No more foreplay. Take me to Janus.
As McCurdy pointed out previously, he seems like he really wants to be there. Like he wanted this.
That's definitely true.
Yeah, if you watch interviews with Pierce, like he was just really upset that he couldn't be Bond sooner. Like when originally he was going to be Bond, he was pretty devastated.
You were supposed to do Bond, what, about 8-10 years ago?
I was supposed to do Bond in 1986.
Right. And this is the network that screwed you about
this.
Not
Is the Peacock. Yeah, the Peacock peed on me.
Really? Well, tell the story.
But it's okay. I dried off since then.
No. But now you were doing Remington Steele, but it was canceled, right?
I was doing Remington. Thank you. It was a great show. It was in its 4th season, and they put a line through it. They canceled it. I got offered James Bond. I said yes to the part, but in the contract,
there was a 60-day clause in which NBC, or MTM, who owned the show, they had 60 days in which to resell it back. And in those 60 days, I went ahead with all the negotiations, the wardrobe fittings, my stunt double had started the pre-title sequence in Gibraltar, etc., etc. Cubby and I had done all the photographs, you know, and then, you know, the negotiations went on over those 60 days, and it was getting down to the wire. Cubby said, look, you can have them for 6 episodes, but no more than 6. And they said, well, think about it. On the 60th day, they came back and they said, we'd like the option of 22. Cubby said, no way. And that was it.
And then you were out? Oh,
I was out. It was gone. It was on a Thursday evening. I remember my wife and I, we were renting a house down in Malibu, and it was 6:30 in the evening. My agent phoned up and said, it's not going to happen.
Well, how many, did you actually do the Remington Steeles after that?
I did the 6, and then they canceled the show.
Oh, man. Kev, do I have one of those 60-day clauses?
I would check it out, Jay.
But you know, see, all good things come around. They all come around.
They do. It's amazing that this came around a second time.
It's interesting to see that I think Dalton really didn't care to be Bond. I think Dalton is an actor first and just maybe not a fan. Where Connery and Moore kind of paved the way for the character, essentially. Like, they kind of really laid it out. I think Dalton and then after is really the era of, we were fans of this, we wanted to be this, you know? Like, you'll talk about, if you ever talk to, like, Doctor Who fans, they'll kind of say some similar things about some of the Doctor Who's as, you know, I watched Doctor Who as a kid. I remember Doctor Who. I always wanted to play this character. And now they finally got the chance to be Doctor Who. I think it's the same thing with James Bond. I think Pierce is like the first kind of fan of the character that's like, definitely want to be James Bond.
I grew up on Sean Connery. He was, for me, my James Bond. I saw Goldfinger back in 1964, never thinking or dreaming that I was going to end up playing James Bond.
I mean, so when I saw this naked lady, this gold naked lady, it was unbelievable. Yeah. And I kept on going back for more, you know, but...
You don't really get that sense with Dalton so much, because it's like, you know, I'm an actor. Exactly. So it's nice to see somebody who I think encompasses all the swagger and the smoothness of Connery, but he can give a little bit of a wink and an eye. He's not as like completely serious as Connery, but he kind of embodies a little bit of the Roger Moore-ness that we kind of like.
Comical side of Roger, yeah.
Yeah, the charming, sarcastic quippiness of Roger Moore.
I enjoy a spirited ride as much as the next girl, Billy.
Who's that?
The next girl.
But at the same time, Pierce might smile at you one second, and then he's a fucking killer the next.
Why can't you just be a good boy and die?
You first. You second.
Up! And him and Dalton, you know, they don't look too far off. You know, he can still play that serious kind of modern take of the character. So he's like he's still kind of the perfect Bond. When you really think about it, you're like, Pierce, damn, he's so good.
Yeah. This is where I want to introduce a new segment of the show called the Pierce Brosnan Bond ASMR segment, where I'm going to cut in all the moments where Pierce has one tick. He has a very specific tick that I think is hilarious, but it just goes to show that the guy just
this shows
drips.
You've watched these too much.
The guy drifts in this certain kind of sexiness, right? Because he's very smooth.
I think
he's a very smooth operator. No, go watch from here on. Watch every Brosnan movie, and he's always doing this. Let me hang on. Let me grease up my face.
He's always got the quips.
Quiet. He's always doing this. Let me turn up my mic. He's always doing this. He's like this. He's like that. He's always doing that.
Are you serious?
Shut up. Let me do it again. Shut up. Headphones? Shut up. Listen. Quiet. This is Pierce Brosnan in a nutshell.
What?
He constantly sounds like he's taking a drag off of a cigarette. every scene is he's constantly clicking his mouth. So he's like, I just did it again. I just did it perfectly.
I don't know if Charlie is a bigger boner for Xenia or Pierce.
Charles.
Guys. Once I cut it together, you're going to you're gonna go, oh my god, he was right.
I go to sleep with ASMR almost every night.
Yeah.
But you've never gone to bed with Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah.
Make it for me. Make me a Pierce Brosnan ASMR.
We aim to please.
Did the Riddle thing ever bug you as much as it bugs me?
Nope.
No.
You didn't even think about it? You don't
The
care?
only point where when he said chair, I was like, F off.
Yeah, I was like, it's that simple.
That was the only point where I was like, chair? What?
All Boris had to do was do like chair 69 exclamation point.
It was a couple of seconds. And I was like, okay, whatever, it's chair.
But here's the thing. You sit on it, but you can't take it with you. Here's the thing. I'm not going to reiterate what I already said because I think the whole thing's bullshit. But if his first clue was
they're right in front of you and can open very large doors.
That's great. He's talking about titties because he's a pervert. That's great. So then he says,
you sit on it, but you can't take it with you.
You sit on it, but you can't take it with you. And she thinks he's talking about butts.
Another pervert
because
thing.
Yes, another perverted thing.
Yeah.
Had he said, you sit on it, but you take it with you, ass, he would, you sit on it, but you take it with you is your butt.
I'm sorry this bothers you.
Same argument could be made for chair.
No! You sit on it, but you can't, okay. This is what I'm getting at. I think that in the original script, the answer to the riddle was another perverted thing. It was essentially butt, right? And then I think the producers said, that's weird. We don't want to do that. Because end of the day, it's going to be James Bond who has to respond to it. And so James Bond is saying this weird perverted thing that's not very classy. I mean, here's some examples of what it could have been.
It's Boris' password. He plays word games. It's what I sit on, but I don't take it with me.
Face.
What I sit on, but I don't take it with me.
Cock.
What I sit on, but I don't take it with me.
Ass.
Like I said.
30 seconds.
Let's just simplify it. It's chair. But chair is just a stupid response where floor or ground or earth is perfect because a chair can or cannot be taken with you. I mean, it's an object you can pick up and walk with, but you generally don't take it with you. But that doesn't mean you can't take it with you.
Good luck with the floor, James.
But the floor you can sit on, but you absolutely cannot take with you. Unless on a technicality, you're counting the floor as coming with you in the tank or a train or a plane.
No plane, no train.
In which case, the answer should have been ground. I don't know. It's just chair. It's just stupid. I hate chair. So it's like they didn't even think. And then again, Bond is sitting there on the floor at the time. It's just, It seems like I'm the only person on the planet who cares.
Yeah. It's just,
This movie is garbage. This movie belongs at the. This movie shouldn't even be on the list.
To the bottom.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares, Charlie. Just you.
One more thing about that scene, though. When Natalya is looking for Alec Trevelyan, I always kind of notice that the cities she reads off, it's almost like she's playing a little game called Where in the World is 007?
30 seconds.
He's not in Russia, Germany, Paris, London, Madrid.
25 seconds.
New York, Toronto, Chicago, San Francisco.
20 seconds.
Mexico City, Rio, Miami. He's in Cuba, Havana.
No!
But you know what? On that note, we haven't really talked about Boris, and I think Alan Cummings does this amazing job as Boris.
Yes,
I just think Boris is so...
Gun! I am invincible!
Boris is not really a henchman as much as he's like a part of the scheme.
Was it good for you too?
But he kind of also embodies the computer hacker craze of the early 90s, but it's like, he's just so good. Like, he's just so good, man. The accent.
I thought I'd post it on the internet, no?
What's the password?
I made it easy this time. Even you should be able to break it. Burst for brain. 6 minutes.
Prepare the dish.
No, it's too early. I am not ready.
Do it.
And it's also the weirdness. It's also like he has that like nerd rage thing where he's trying to like pump himself up all the time. Like he's like, I'm Boris, I'm invincible. But like the moment where Natalya sends the spike to him and he's like, shit, and then he has to pull all of the...
She's a moron. A second-level programmer. She works on the guidance system.
Oh, and it's just the way he does that whole scene. You see a little bit of that weak nerd that's like, oh no. And, and it like reminds me of today. Today we live in a day of like keyboard warriors, people who like go online and like they'll bash people and they'll do all this stuff.
Yes, I am invincible.
He is that keyboard warrior.
This is not one of your games, Boris. Real people will die.
It's great.
Dude, he could have been the main bad guy if he wasn't so much of a wimp. He could have been...
Nobody screws with Boris Grishenko. I spiked them.
What is this?
Spiked them.
Oh no. Can someone tell me how the hell he got into our system?
I just want to know if he went through specific training to be able to flip that pen around. Because I can try right now. I can't do it.
That whole scene with them clicking it and Bond just like 2, no, 3, no. That was just brilliant. I love it.
It's hard.
The best part about that scene was that Alec Trevelyan called out the watch. He was like, what's Q working on right now? This pen? Is this something? And he throws it aside.
So how is old Q? Up to his usual tricks? The watch.
As a fellow 00, he knew exactly what Bond's plan would be, which is you'll create a life-saving diversion in the form of an explosion. So he's got his sticky mines that are going to blow up the gas tanks, and Trevelyan knows in that moment, disarms that. And then the backup ends up being the exploding pen that he didn't receive Q branch memos about. When Q says,
3 clicks, arms the 4-second fuse, another 3 disarms it.
When you click it twice and then you wait 10 seconds and then click it again, does that count as 3?
Apparently not, no.
I'd imagine it's consecutive.
Yeah. I think it works fine, but it's just kind of vague, right? If I click it 4 times, is it armed? I think it would have worked better if Boris had been clicking in definitive 3s.
How long did you say the fuse was?
Because he'd click it 4 times, and then Bond is thinking, holy shit, it might explode in his face. All you need to know is that at the end, when Boris definitively just goes click, click, click.
Give me the cards, Natalya! Give them to me!
And then without fail, every single time I left my ass off as complete chaos just reigns supreme in that control center.
I love that setup.
Yeah.
I love that they use the gadget in such a nice way. I love that the movie doesn't try to overuse the gadgets. Like, we really only see 2 gadgets being used. That Q
specifically explains, yeah. But otherwise, we have a lot of gadgets. We've got the belt, the spy camera, the watch laser, the dam jump retractable gun / laser, our exploding pen, sticky mines, and a sandwich.
Don't touch that!
I do think that this Q scene, it is most definitely the best up to this point.
Morning, Q. Sorry about the leg. Skiing?
Hunting.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Campbell's approach to the scene was that every single moment is going to be enjoyable. When you're in Q's realm anything could be something that it doesn't appear to be. Something crazy is going on in the background all the time. We've had this in the past where there's always something going on, but with this, it's relentless. It's just a constant barrage of things going on.
Yeah.
And then it leads up to the single greatest moment ever, which is 007 picks up the sandwich and he's looking at it like, what could this be? And he's like,
Don't touch that! It's my lunch.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Simple perfection.
Now pay attention, 007. First, your new car.
This was the first film that introduced BMW as their main car sponsor. The first Aston Martin is in this movie, but the Bond films of the 90s was the BMW. Much like in the 70s, it was the Lotus. Just that story alone was a lot of free marketing because a lot of people were like freaking out the fact that the BMW was the new car.
I'm not happy about it.
A typical leather belt.
Q is getting older, which means that as far as filmmaking goes, they need to kind of compensate for his old age. And it's quite clear that the most useful gadget that Q is using in his Q scene is, in fact, Q cards, so he can read his lines.
I didn't notice.
Because he can't remember
it
a lot of what's going on when he's talking. It's just when he's talking about that fucking belt. It's like watching SNL. You know, in SNL, all the characters are always looking at the cue cards, and it's very obvious. All they had to do was cut in for a close-up of the belt to kind of save us from seeing that, and for some reason they didn't.
Alec?
Xenia!
General Rumov?
Boris!
In a lot of these movies, we have a hierarchy of the villains, right? And some of them we have two villains, but we're not quite sure who the main villain is, and it's really muddled and confusing. I really like this group of villains. We have 4 villains, all very distinctly different. Yeah. We have Trevelyan, who's obviously the head of this whole operation, and he's kind of a polar opposite of James Bond. We have Onatop.
Onatop?
Onatop.
Who is also kind of a polar opposite of Bond in a weird, different way. She's like the female assassin, but she has this weird quirk of like getting off to killing people.
It is the single greatest reaction shot in the entire James Bond series when they pan over to Ormov and he's like...
There's a whole bunch of back and forth about pleasure in between those.
The Xenia scenes rhyme.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Bond.
The pleasure, I'm sure, was all mine.
Once again, the pleasure was all yours.
This time, Mr. Bond, the pleasure will be all mine.
And I like that he doesn't fight her, he just... And then that's our one Bond joke of the whole movie, which is...
She always did enjoy a good squeeze.
Which is hilarious and awesome. And perfect.
I thought it was brilliant, where she was like, oh, well, I won't lose sleep. And he's like, psh, sweet dreams. Just knocks her out.
That was the incredibly misogynistic moment of the movie because his face, he's like...
The pleasure, I'm sure, was all mine.
When they do the judo chop, they just stay on him on the shot. I like that. It's just something weird that it's like if they had done that in a wide, it would have looked goofy. But I love how they just like see his reaction.
And then she's just like this.
Love it. Yeah.
Yeah. I just love it. 2 people who just thoroughly enjoy causing each other physical pain. She's the only villainess ever that you can bank on the fact that she really, really, really enjoyed being murdered. You guys thought Tracy was Bond's perfect wife because she's damaged.
Okay.
Xenia Zargevna Onatop is literally a masochist who just wants Bond to beat her up while he's... In another universe, him and Xenia are she's Xenia Bond.
And then we also get Boris. Boris is also kind of like Natalya's opposite as well. So we got 2 different opposites, you know. And then
Ormov.
He kind of represents Russia or the bygone era or whatever.
Well, and as far as the story goes, Ormov is something of a red herring because at the beginning we think that he's the main baddie to the point where M has to tell Bond not to go on a revenge movie.
And if you should come across Ourumov, guilty or not, I don't want you running off on some kind of vendetta. Avenging Alec Trevelyan will not bring him back.
You didn't get him killed.
Neither did you. Don't make it personal.
Never.
And then it turns out that he's just a pawn of the unexpected bad guy.
But I love that it's just this core group of villains, and it works really well.
I said in the last episode, and this is just my general belief when it comes to showdowns with bad guys, I don't like punch for punches because they are predictable. You just always know the good guy's going to win. So punch for punches are just kind of lame. That's why I like the duel with Scaramanga. That's why I appreciate the whole thing with Sanchez. They have a brief struggle, and then they just have a massive tanker truck accident leading up to the whole gasoline thing. With something like this, though, it's a little different. They are great candidates for a punch for punch because they are equal but opposites, right?
Yeah.
Not in the same way that him and Scaramanga are equal but opposites, or him and Sanchez are equal but opposites, or whatever, but that they are quite literally equals because they're both double O's. So to have them have a physical punch for punch actually works really well, but it's not like it comes down to that like it does in From Russia with Love, right? Where it's a punch for punch leading to just, hey, let me strangle you with your own watch thing. Instead, it's a punch for punch that then leads to that great little moment of,
You know, James, I was always better.
so that's why that works. Again, to add to my list of, this movie having everything, you have a punch for punch, but it has meaning beyond just, I'm going to beat you up. Combining the big world-ending stakes with the personal stakes in that moment of...
For England, James?
No. For me.
It's just so fucking brutal. I love it. When the antenna collapses, you literally have Alec's entire plan falling on top of him. So you got a nice little, visual metaphor there. But then on top of that, you have Boris put in the same position that he put Natalya in himself by betraying her. Remember, Natalya was in Severnaya, and the dish collapsed into the control center. So you have Boris surviving the same thing. He's literally put into the same position, and then he only lasts, about 5 seconds.
I am invincible!
I like there's a little bit of a fire and ice thing going on there, because you have, obviously the fire from the satellite coming down on him, and then, he survives that, but then he's like frozen. So I just like that. It's a fire and ice death, It's great.
It would have been great if we had an alumni from Game of Thrones. Fire and ice. What?
And then you have Xenia being killed by being squeezed to death. So they all have these very satisfying and fitting bad guy deaths. Okay, Nikolai Quack.
Oh,
good old Nikolai.
Nikolai, the non-Russian German.
I rewatched GoldenEye pretty recently, and I came to the following conclusion. Everything except Brosnan's performance, the score, and some of the model/effects work is brilliant. It has a fantastic cast of villains, awesome action, and a great Bond girl. Sadly, Brosnan gives his weakest performance in this by far. He's perfect in the action scenes and has some genuinely good comedic moments, but a lot of the time, he looks like he was super nervous to take on this legendary role. He's very monotone for a lot of it and doesn't show a lot of range. I think if he had been better, it would be top 5 material for sure. The way it stands, it currently ranks as my number 6. On top is just perfect, though. We can all agree on that, and Ourumov is underrated. Yes, on those last 2 points.
Nikolai, come on.
Come on, Nikolai.
I just don't see the hating on Pierce.
No, I don't see that either.
I don't. I think Pierce is actually really good in this movie.
Yeah, every time I watch the movie, I try to nitpick Pierce, and I can't.
Actually, this is Brosnan's best for me by a mile.
Yeah,
The rest
you
are
could argue. I
tragic.
think someone could make the argument to say that obviously it's Pierce's first time doing the film,
Yeah.
Playing the role, and then because even when we were talking about Sean Connery back in the first couple of movies, Connery kind of like it takes him a while, and then once he gets to Thunderball, it's like, oh, he's really good at this role because he's very comfortable and he's very relaxed. After that, he just begins to stop caring, and same with Roger Moore. I think he kind of ramps up to being really good at his role and trying to figure out how he wants to play the role. But like, I just don't really feel that about Pierce in this movie. I think it's just, he does such a great job of dealing with the betrayal and the all the subtleties with that and how he feels about his own peer. So I don't agree with that at all, really.
Yeah, I never felt like he was uncomfortable.
I do just have one nitpicky thing so far as his performance is concerned, but it's less of a performance thing and more of an editing thing, which is that I don't think that he always needs to have some kind of comeback. Like, he doesn't have to respond to every little provocation that comes his way.
I hope the third is where your real talent lies.
One rises to meet a challenge.
Like, sometimes I think it's better if a character just says nothing.
I hope the third is where your real talent lies.
James, what an unpleasant surprise.
We aim to please.
James, what an unpleasant surprise. Where's the girl? Find her.
But at the same time, that's Bond's thing, right? As Alec himself even points out.
No glib remark? No pithy comeback?
I agree with Nikolai with the music, which we kind of talked about. I'm not saying I outright hate all of the music. It's just, I think there are spots in the music or the score that aren't the best.
Yeah, and I can understand. I personally really like the soundtrack. Like I said, I think it's cool. There's only one scene where I could have done with no music at all, and that would have been the statue yard. It kind of goes sentimental. I don't know.
MI6 figured I was too young to remember.
But the idea that Pierce Brosnan, who had been a steady working actor for a long time, is nervous, and that reflects in his... I mean, I can't help but think the same, and forgive me, McCurdy, but I can't help but think the same thing as, oh yeah, Roger Moore didn't want to beat up on Maud Adams, and it shows in his performance. And I go, no, just because he secretly behind the scenes didn't want to do that doesn't mean that it shows in his performance. He's still a professional actor. I just stuff like that I see as behind the scenes knowledge bleeding in.
So tell me, like, the first day on the shoot, you're Bond, you're the new Bond. I mean, is it one of the things you walk in and the cameraman goes, oh, this is the new Bond, this little fella.
Sure, you go on the set and there's a crew there of 160 guys and they're all waiting for you to do your thing. I mean, the pressure for me, I screwed my finger up. I sliced the tendon in this little finger.
Yeah.
About 8 weeks before I did the film. So I had a finger that was like this. You know, I had a splint for 7 weeks. When I took the splint off, I took it off the morning of shooting. And the first scene that I had to do was with Robbie Coltrane. Big guy. Here I am as James Bond. He comes into shot, and I put the gun to his head. Okay? Now, my finger, I put the gun to his head, and he says the line, what does he say? Only 3 men in the world own that gun, Walter PPK, and I've killed 2 of them. And then it rakes focus to me, and I've got the gun, and I'm supposed to say, lucky me. I say, lucky me, and my finger goes, donk. So, it was like, sorry. It was just, it wasn't. It was nerve-wracking because you feel a bit silly. So I said, I'm sorry, guys, let's go again. It's okay. And Martin Campbell was very nervous. Everybody was very nervous. Everybody's looking to me to be the man. So we went again. It was like, lucky me, and then it kind of squeezed out. So I had to strap it down, the finger.
Right, yeah.
I'm sure in interviews he said he was nervous. Who wouldn't be nervous? The question is, does that show in the performance? And I don't see it. I read that comment and then I watched the movie 3 times in a row, and I kept trying to find a moment where Pierce reflected that idea, and I'm like, I can't find it. I think Pierce Brosnan just kicks ass.
Do you know what gun this is?
Walther PPK.
Walther PPK. 7.65 millimeter. Only 3 men I know use such a gun.
That's another thing I could add to the list of everything. They handle the Walther PPK thing correctly, right? Where it's not exclusively a James Bond thing. Other people use that gun, but it's also specific to Bond. Not exclusive, specific.
Only one person we know uses this sort of gun.
It makes no sense that Spectre would only know one guy that uses a Walther PPK.
The American CIA swear by them.
It makes complete sense that Valentine would know at least a handful.
I believe I've killed 2 of them.
Blastoise says it has the most overbloated Bond. Blastoise says it has the most overbloated first act in the series. Bond always receives debriefing from M.
No one
and
else
gets his
like this movie?
Q gadgets by the 30-minute mark at the latest. Here, who cares? Here it is at the 1 hour mark that he even begins the mission, and even then, not much espionage work. Blastoise,
That's
who
the
cares?
dumbest thing I've heard, dude.
Blastoise says hydro pumps.
The dumbest.
Blastoise, it doesn't have to stick to a
oh my
given
God.
formula. Like I said before, the reason why GoldenEye is such a strong shift is that it gets away from the idea of Bond walks into Universal Exports. Moneypenny is sitting there, and her desk is right here. And then Bond says some things after throwing his hat on the rack, and he walks frame left through a double door into M's office. M then debriefs him.
Yeah.
Same thing every time, to the minute. That's why I'm such a fan of License to Kill. Even if License to Kill had, I mean, I would still rank it where I did, even if it was the second movie ever made or whatever. But the overall idea is I appreciate when things change and when they shift up.
That is the typical kind of thing you see in someone trying to write a script based off of one thing's supposed to happen versus how it naturally develops in the story. And definitely, as we've pointed out in this movie, the beginning of the story happens for a reason because it's supposed to take place in like 86, 87, and it's supposed to establish that Bond had this previous mission that things happen. He lost an agent that, you know, he was friends with, and his espionage happens while he's trying to figure out what's going on with Onatop, because he's very suspicious of her. He's trying to figure out why they're trying to steal this helicopter.
Well, and don't forget that the main theme of the movie is that there's no espionage to be done because the Cold War is over. But as you pointed out, there's still espionage action type of stuff, spy stuff. So there's like virtually no complaint here.
And then to see like, oh, but the briefing happens so late in the movie. I'm like, there was briefings that happened late in the previous Moore movies, and it wasn't a big deal that it happened so late in the movie. Like From Russia with Love and You Only Live Twice spends so much time going over the villain's scheme as to like what is going on, especially You Only Live Twice. And it's just like we're watching the rocket happen and get stolen and all this stuff. And it takes forever. And then finally we get to Bond. This movie, at least, we see a little bit of the villain scheme, but we also are following Bond and we're kind of catching up. And then on top of all of that, like we mentioned in the beginning, this movie happened post-Cold War. And if you don't realize how much of a big deal that was to make a spy movie that is a character that was supposed to be during the Cold War, after the Cold War had ended, you're kind of missing the point. I think that's like, to say this is an over-bloated beginning, I'm like, it kind of reestablishes the character not only with this new actor, but also with, hey, we're making Bond for a new era. Cold War's over, but, you know, spy stuff still goes on, guys. Like, this is what we're dealing with.
I just disagree completely with the idea that every Bond movie has to be exactly the same to the minute. It's bloated just because it's different. I reject that. But let's hear what Blastoise has to say, though, because we've only read a sentence of what he has to say.
All Blastoise can say is Blastoise.
Technically, yes. Is that
How drunk are you?
So anyway, backtracking.
Don't
Here it is
unsubscribe.
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
Here it is at the 1 hour mark that he even begins the mission, and even Scott, shut the fuck up!
Too.
God damn it!
Dance is laughing too. Let's hear what Blastoise has.
Here it is at the 1 hour mark that he even begins the mission, and even then, not much espionage work. He rendezvous with Jack Wade, then meets Zukovsky, which leads him to 006 to get captured immediately, When the action does arrive, it's nonstop with no time to breathe. There's just no intrigue. Oh, good God. That is objectively false. I mean, the entire movie, Bond is trying to solve several mysteries. What's the plan with the helicopter? What's the plan with the GoldenEye? Who is behind Janus? Oh, wait. It's my old 00 buddy I witnessed getting murdered. And when you total everything up, the theft of a helicopter to steal a doomsday weapon by a 00 who betrays his government because his government betrayed his people, because his people betrayed their country, is the very definition of intrigue. It's very much point A to B, tying all the set pieces together as fast as possible so the ADD generation doesn't get bored. The fastest betting of any Bond girl for Natalya. What? From meeting in the helicopter to escaping the train couldn't have been 2 hours. But what happened in those 2 hours? I'd fuck Bond for that. And technically they don't bang until they get to Cuba. And he never even flirts with her.
I suppose that depends on what kind of weapon you're talking about disarming.
She hates him, then immediately wants to bang because the explosion gave her a concussion. Dude, you were... Dude, again, let me flash her face as James Bond is pursuing in a fucking tank, and she's like... like, she... In that moment, the Super Soaker is turned on. I mean, you would fuck him at that point.
As soon as a man is chasing you in a tank.
Yeah, I mean, whether they were minor or major Bond girls, there have been far faster bettings where Bond didn't even have to do anything, let alone rescue a woman from an arch nemesis.
How do you kill 5 hours in Rio if you don't samba?
Judi Dench's M never got the right chemistry with Bond until Craig came along, in my opinion.
You've got a bloody cheek.
Sorry.
We'll definitely talk about this more when we get to Casino, but I guess for now it's interesting to note that when Judi Dench's M is dealing with Pierce Brosnan, it's a much older Bond, and then when she's dealing with Daniel Craig, it's a fresh Bond. But in both scenarios, Bond still has this Bond-esque arrogance that he's right and everybody else is wrong. So in one way, it's apples and oranges, in another way, not so much. But either way, I think that scene between him and M just perfectly brings us into this post-Cold War who is Bond scenario.
You're a sex dinosaur.
And they shouldn't even bother with Moneypenny if they're going to shit on the flirtatious chemistry that Moore/Connery had with Lois Maxwell that made the character interesting and give Brosnan the cold shoulder in the awkward safety door. Q gets some of his best bits since Octopussy. I think the scene between him and Moneypenny is hot.
Is this still Blastoise?
It's still Blastoise. Instead of a main baddie, we get 4 henchmen, and they are all unique villains. It works. But 006 is not convincing as 007's greatest best friend.
Losing time, James! Lost call!
Buy me a pint!
Well, they never say they're BFF or anything like that. They throw around the word friend, but they're fellow 00s. There's some weight to that.
I trusted you, Alec.
Trust. What a quaint idea.
You can't say it's bloated, but then also say there's not enough substance between them. They're just fellow 00s. That's all you need to know.
Shut the door, Alec! There's a draft! Alec?
There needed to be more substance to their past, and why does 006 hold such a grudge for Bond cutting the timer in half if it's his fault he faked his death? Well, because he's an asshole. That's why Bond says, should I feel sorry for you? Why does only he get his face burned and not the general? Well, because Ormov was already outside the building.
Yeah.
Okay, obviously Blastoise didn't rewatch the movie.
Yeah. I can't tell if Blastoise is joking here. He says, and Boris's riddle is obviously chair. Is it, though?
Well,
Blastoise, are you joking about that?
After
is it
watched
chair?
the movie, yeah.
I don't think it's obviously chair. I think chair is a stupid answer. And I will always blame this as the film for creating the one-man army Bond cliche. Instead of being caught in between 2 rival factions like the Living Daylights, Bond can now shoot his way out by himself against hundreds of enemies, plus a big downgrade in stunts coming off of License to Kill. That being said, a neat epilogue to Cold War Bond. Enjoy it for what it is as the series becomes a shadow of itself. My ranking, number 10, he says, For Your Eyes Only, From Russia With Love, Goldfinger, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, The Spy Who Loved Me, Dr. No, Thunderball, Octopussy, The Living Daylights, GoldenEye, Live and Let Die, You Only Live Twice, Moonraker, License to Kill, A View to a Kill, The Man with the Golden Gun, Diamonds Are Forever. I read all of that off of acronyms.
Wow.
I'm impressed with myself.
That's a good question. Is this the most one army Bond we've seen so far? I would almost agree with him to that point. The tank scene, I think, is
I think more like the miss of the commando
one
scene
army
at the end.
Bond scene we've seen.
Yeah, I'm more on with Charlie. I think it's more about like the fact that he does get captured. He gets captured. There's explosions, people running around, but it's not so much a commando scene. He gets captured.
Scene.
We're not talking about the tank scene. Catch up, bro. I guess I kind of see what he's saying about like the one person army, and even in the beginning of the movie when he's trying to get away from them.
Has Bond faced more villains at a single point and gotten away?
Well, let's break it down. Because there's a big it depends here. There are 3 main scenes where Bond faces off against a bunch of dudes, whereas before we would just have commando sequences, big battles, big drawn-out battles. These are somewhat different, but it's not Bond going against a giant army like those old commando scenes, just getting rid of the commandos. So the 3 scenes are the opening, but Bond is running away. He kind of has that advantage of running away up until the point that Ourumov calls off the forces. Most likely because he was counting on Bond to surrender, because he literally had no way of escape other than the hope that he could get into the plane in time. Hold your fire because I want to capture this guy, not kill him. Bond goes from being completely trapped in the gas tank chamber.
You can't win.
To being so desperate that he's willing to jump off a cliff to escape. Scene number 2 is the escaping the archives plus the tank chase. In the archives, again, enclosed space, Bond's running away. Bond gets away. Bond gets in a tank and faces off against some soldiers and police officers who cannot face down his tank. The third scene is then the finale where he sneaks in to sabotage via bomb. He gets captured. Exploding pen becomes backup bomb that then allows him to escape. So this all goes back to my old arguments about keeping Bond alive and doing so in a believable way. Instead of just Bond surviving all these assassins, it's Bond is put in certain situations that he uses his brain to get out of, or his brute strength, even if that's in the form of a tank. When you look at each scene individually, Bond doesn't kill everybody in these 3 scenes. He kills just enough to get away. Yes, there are a lot of bad guys, but there's never a moment where you're like, this is bullshit, man. Yeah, Bond blows a couple of clips off like Rambo, but it's not a battle to the last man standing, which we may or may not see in another movie. The way it's put together, it's believable that he could escape these situations. And that's really what he's doing just about every time, is he is escaping, not fighting a battle, which, yes, Blastoise, would be absurd. Ricardo Cantoral says, GoldenEye isn't a poor movie, but it's by far the most overrated film in the franchise. The movie is just a pastiche of old Bond films, and it never has the guts to really examine Bond's character. God damn it! Did any of you watch the same movie we watched? I can't understand anything anybody's saying.
No. I agree. I'm the same way, because
Bond's character's all over this fucking movie.
If you want to watch a pastiche of the Bond films, go back and watch The Spy Who Loved Me, which is a very obvious pastiche of a bunch of Bond films.
We even said that movie was the best of Bond. It was literally just take all the best of and cram it into one thing.
This movie didn't look at his character. Are you crazy? Have you watched the movie?
I said this movie has everything, but it was everything, not just recycling old stuff, but it took all those themes and all those tropes and it made it into something completely new.
Well, we don't get, there's no train scene in this movie that is there's a train, but there's no train scene where they're like going from one place to the other in a train.
And it's
which I think is a trope in a lot of films. There's a Bond car, but there is no supercar Bond chase.
Nope.
There is a chase scene, but it's very specific to this movie.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not just a car chase. Bond is not escaping in the tank. Bond is chasing somebody in a tank.
And that's what's so cool about that scene is that they're chasing Bond and then it flips and suddenly Bond is chasing them and they're terrified about it.
Down the alley.
None of this movie feels like it's stale or if it's, oh, we've seen this before. It all is fresh and it's the product of clearing house entirely, of taking everybody who made 16 movies straight and either they died or they got rid of them. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's like they sat there for 6 years going, hey, what is Bond? And they just, and they nailed it. It is literally the phoenix rising from the ashes and becoming a brand new movie that takes everything that is Bond and renews it.
It took a new, fresh set of eyes. It looks at the old material, says, how can we make this into a modern film? And how does this film, what does this film say about what's going on currently in the world? And it does it in such a great way of, it's still an action film. It's still a film that you can go and watch and you're like, this is fun. I love this. But it still makes it's still commenting on the idea that is Bond still relevant? Like that's the whole theme throughout this movie is James Bond, is the James Bond franchise, is it still relevant? And I think the answer to the movie is definitely yes.
Yeah. So our
Thanks
last comment
for being
here.
a subscriber. Welcome to getting shit on.
Oh my God.
Qwerty Manor says, yeah, it's overrated. Brosnan is overrated. Besides, the world is not enough. And it feels like an apology to License to Kill. So that being said, let me just lay out my theory on this. Because just like Living Daylights, remember, this is the best movie ever because Timothy Dalton's in it. I'm getting the same feeling I had back with Secret Service. I'm talking to you, Nikolai, you motherfucker. Secret Service is a movie that is obviously flawed and is obviously not at the top of the list. If you have a fucking brain in your head, if you are telling the truth, you may like it. I like the movie, but if you're honest with yourself, it's not at the top. But there are people out there, let's call them hipsters, as I've had in the past, who will say that they'll purposely take something that they know in their heart is inferior, and they'll elevate it to being the greatest thing ever. Again, I always use the example of vinyl. Oh, vinyl. Vinyl. It's the best thing ever. It snaps, crackles, and pops. I love it. You have these people who will take something that is clearly less than perfect, and they'll elevate it because they get a certain sense of, I don't know, superiority out of it. George Lazenby only made one movie, and you might not have heard of it. Maybe you didn't hear about it, but I know about it. It's the best Bond movie ever. Oh, you've heard of Casino Royale? You've heard of GoldenEye? Oh, those movies are so mainstream. Oh. It's got this hipster feel to it, and then the reverse of that is something like GoldenEye, where it clearly deserves credit. Maybe it's not at the top of your list. That's fine. You know, this is all subjective. But taking something that clearly deserves credit and then shitting on it and saying it's overrated. I'm not a sports fan, but I know that Tom Brady is shit on. But he's clearly the best that's ever lived.
I think what you're getting at, Charlie, is that I don't quite 100% agree with you about the Honor Matching Secret Service. I think there's actually legitimate reasons why people like that movie other than...
And
I get what you're saying.
But saying it's the best Bond movie ever made, you have to be a hipster asshole. No, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about people out there who say it's the best one ever made. They're just being hipster assholes. And then with this, it's the reverse.
I think it's more what you're talking about in the second half. I think specifically with GoldenEye, you look at that movie compared to a lot of the other Bond films. It was the first to have a video game that I think had a life of its own. Like I think some of these other Bond films even prior to this had a video game attached to it. Films after this movie had a video game attached to it. But nobody talks about those video games because they weren't that good. They weren't that revolutionary. And I bring up the video game because it was such a big deal with this specific movie. And I think it adds to the popularity of this movie. This movie, again, like, it is a revitalization of the Bond franchise in the 90s. It had a very successful video game. The movie itself was very successful. It had a successful James Bond. Like, there's a lot of reasons to like the movie, and I think that's why it gets like the reverse, or the people who want to be antagonistic towards the movie or just want to be contrarian, because they're like, well, it had all these other successes. It was a huge commercial success. It was a huge commercial success, but I think like what you're saying though, is it owes it to the fact that it had a really good story, and it just so happened that the story really told a lot about that particular time and why is Bond still relevant, and it does all those things.
Were most of the comments negative?
Every comment
is like, this
negative.
movie's overrated, and I don't think the movie is overrated. I think it's definitely, if you were not to place this number one, I definitely can see it in anybody's. Again, there's 25 of these movies, so for me, it's like, if it's in the top 8, top 10, I think it's where it needs to be. Probably more than top 10, really. So at this point, so it's got to be in the top 8, really, or top 5, if you're really like being honest with yourself, because it's a great movie. It's kind of perfect. There's a reason why it was popular. There's a reason why it was so successful.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. What I'm getting at is that it's like hating the most popular kid in school because of their success, as opposed to, hate the most popular kid in school because they're an asshole. But then when you find out that most popular kid is actually a really good person, and you're like, I hate you even more. Things that have mass appeal have a tendency to be overrated. So people have this natural tendency to hate things at the top and to elevate things that are at the bottom. Secret Service, it's a good movie. GoldenEye, it's a great movie. And people want to pull down GoldenEye and they want to elevate Secret Service. You can nitpick the hell out of this movie, but you cannot hate a single frame of it. From the get-go, from the turn and shoot, it sets a tone of flawlessness. Not perfection, but just in every movement, every take. It's like Martin Campbell's whole approach was like, we're going to nail every microsecond of this movie. And I think that's why it's so hateable, because it's so flashy. I think people want to hate on Pierce Brosnan because he's flawless. That's why I call him the smooth Bond, because every movement of his is just smooth. I think there are certain fans out there that would prefer him to have some kind of flaw, like maybe he should have that scar on his cheek, like how he's described in the Fleming novels. If you're truly giving credit where credit is due, this movie is at the top of our list, hands down.
I disagree. It's the top of our list. So wait, are we ranking this movie? Can we just rank this damn movie and get this over with?
Clearly Charlie has it at the top, but I want to hear what McCurdy, are you top 2, or are you also are you
I am
further down?
I'm not further down on this one, actually. I think Charlie, we've talked about this ad nauseum.
Bon nauseum.
Oh yeah.
But
Hashtag
really
bon nauseum.
It's number one, and we just keep saying it all tonight. It's just it's number one for a lot of reasons. The things that I argued about on Magic Secret Service, the reasons that Charlie would argue for Man with a Golden Gun, which I thought were still stupid. But it's like all the like his argument. It's like, I get it when you're arguing GoldenEye, and my argument, I get it if you're arguing GoldenEye. It makes a lot more sense. It's basically, back when we were talking about Honor Majesty's Secret Service, my whole point with that movie and why it still is a good movie is not because it's the hipster movie, but it's because it takes the character, it takes the story, it tries to look at it at a different light, and it adds something to the character that makes it kind of change the character just ever so slightly. And this movie kind of does that in that fact that we, instead of seeing, Bond just doing his own same thing, saves the world, blah, blah, blah. This movie, it's like, oh, no, this is somebody, a peer of his, somebody else that's another 00 that's just like him, who kind of took a darker path than he did. And now there's actually a little bit of a betrayal there. And then it's also questioning, like, is Bond still relevant at this point in time? Like, that's kind of the whole theme of this movie. And obviously, it does it so well. Like the whole movie is just done so well. So yeah, it's at my number 1.
It's hard to talk about why it should be number 1 because the moment you start talking about it, everything that makes it number 1, it just has everything. And it's not like it just has it all in this list, check it off the boxes. It's that plus it all congeals into a singular, solid story that is satisfying from beginning to end.
I think License to Kill, as much as I know we ranked it very high on our last one, but it does stray away very far from kind of what felt like the formula, which was like the reason you wanted to go see a Bond movie in the first place.
Bond movie.
It's not a Bond movie. This movie is very firmly goes back to the Cold War roots. It goes back to the spy espionage story. It still keeps like this kind of revengey plot that
the bad guy is literally a fellow 00, which is just that's just
it
great.
Stays and it still stays within it, but it modernizes it. Like it even though it doesn't do the Spectre thing with like which kind of starts to get into the comic book weeds a little bit. But this is like, no, we're still kind of staying true to what's modern and kind of grounds it a little bit in the story. And so it's just does everything just very well. Just so good.
Closing time, James. Last call.
On that note, I'm going to throw out my final element of this movie that completes the it has everything list. And that's the classic keeping Bond alive trope that I've talked about Bond nauseum. In this movie, Bond is kept alive for a specific purpose. Instead of just running away from assassins and all that Roger Moore stuff, when he's captured by Janus, he's kept alive specifically to frame him and Natalya as the perpetrators of Severnaya.
Where is the GoldenEye?
I assumed you had it.
I have an English spy, a Severnaya programmer, and the helicopter they stole.
Or at least that's what some traitor in your government wanted to
Who is
look
behind
like.
your attack on Severnaya?
Who with the authorization codes?
Russia may have changed, but the penalty for terrorism is still death.
And
Mr.
what's the
Bond.
penalty for treason?
Oh, stop it, both of you!
And then Bond manages to survive that, only to then later be recaptured by Alec, where he traps him in the train, and then he gives him the, 6 minutes.
Same 6 minutes you gave me.
What does that mean?
We've got 3 minutes.
But for me, it's got that core element of Alec could have just killed him in the statue yard, but he uses him as part of his bad guy plot until he doesn't need him anymore.
Kill him. The man just won't take a hint.
So I want to propose my rank of this movie. I think it should be at the very bottom. I think it should
I agree. That fucking Riddle thing
that Riddle is so
unforgivable.
bad.
Chair?
Ruined it.
I think it's worse than You Only Live Twice. I think it should be at the very bottom of the list.
You sit on it, and then you
that
can't
doesn't
take
make any
with
sense.
A chair, dude. I have. How many chairs have you carried in your life?
I know.
My proposition was GoldenEye at number 1, and all I wrote was, "Duh."
That's fine.
So
big surprise.
So sorry, Nikolai. Sorry, Blastoise. Sorry, everybody else. But like, you gotta give credit where credit is due. This movie fucking rocks. I don't see this stuff about Pierce being bad or nervous. Every time I watch it, I'm looking for a single tick where he should. Oh, I shouldn't be here, and I don't see it. I just see a guy just who feels like he's a continuation of every Bond that we've seen. I mean, yeah, the only tick he has is.
Okay, stop. We're done.
But anyway.
Stop it.
So,
we're going. Come on.
GoldenEye number 1, Goldfinger number 2. Fuck you, Goldfinger! We got you! We got you! We got you! Motherfucker! I love Goldfinger, but go fuck yourself. You done? You done?
Use a bumper! That's what it's for!
From Russia with Love, License to Kill, The Spy Who Loved Me, The Man with the Golden Gun, Dr. No, A View to a Kill, For Your Eyes Only, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, Thunderball, Octopussy, The Living Daylights, Live and Let Die, Moonraker, Diamonds Are Forever, You Only Live Twice. We did it, everybody. We finally got Goldfinger off the top.
We did it.
I just wish that number 3 was The Man with the Golden Gun, so it was GoldenEye, Goldfinger, The Man with the Golden Gun.
I'll just go back and change it.
No. No.
We're going to convince McCurdy one day.
No, he won't. I'm still think you guys are all f***ed.
After going through these 16 movies for close to a year and scrutinizing the hell out of them, those first 16 movies were all produced by one man. And he's missing on this one somewhat. It was maybe the first time that the old Cubby Broccoli was not on set.
He was still alive when they were making this movie.
He was alive, but I could never find an instance of him being on set.
Yeah. All the same, for every single one of these movies, you know, he was at least one of two men, but, you know, he had been pretty much the driving force, which also kind of makes the Bond franchise a family endeavor.
Yeah.
And that was to Albert R. Broccoli, who I'm assuming we're toasting to tonight.
Oh, we are most definitely toasting to Mr. Cubby. Cubby is the reason why we are all sitting here tonight. The man produced every movie up to this point, and unfortunately, health conditions put him into a backseat role when it came to GoldenEye.
The guy was a showman. You know, he knew how to make these movies stand out. I mean, there may have been decisions that, you know, we may have not agreed with necessarily all at times, especially during, you know, that Roger Moore era. But hell, you know, he kept the franchise going for 16 films. And granted, you know, today we take for granted that, you know, there's the Marvel franchise and they'll keep on making movie after movie. But back then, you know, to have a single character go on for as many years as it did and to make as many movies as they did for this time period that's definitely an achievement. So here's to Albert R. Broccoli.
Thanks, Cubby.
Thank you.
Cheers. Sorry guys, I just pissed in this bottle.
What?
And it overflowed. It overflowed all over me.
Go piss, dude.
I hope you leave it in the episode.
Oh my
That's what we
God.
get for recording for 4.5 hours. I came for a GoldenEye and I got a golden shower.